Mason, hold these for Mama. Hold them.
Came from you? Yeah. And then Elizabeth was saying something else also came, but I don't have a copy of it. My Elizabeth, my sister. Something else? Yeah, on Santana West through your office, but I don't know. This is the only thing, right? Yeah, okay.
It's the outlet season finale, and Ariel is about to choose between 3 young space heaters.
I like the idea of having a personal heater, but then it just became overbearing.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our statement of values.
But he took longer to get ready than I did.
I pledge allegiance to the
ceramic
flag
heater made me feel
of the
safe,
United
but
States
he
of
was a
America
complete motor mouth.
and to the republic for which it stands,
Space heater
one
will Ariel
nation,
choose?
under God,
Will it be
indivisible,
the
with
directional
liberty and justice for all.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interests of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you. Please be seated. City Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Caserta. Davis. Kolstad.
Here.
Mahan. O'Neill. Watanabe. Mayor Gilmore.
Here.
Please allow me to read the statement of behavioral standards.
I will allow you.
The
Okay.
city, the city of Santa Clara
As long
has.
as you behave, okay?
I'll manage for this short paragraph.
Okay.
The city of Santa Clara has adopted a code of ethics and values and behavioral standards for public meetings to promote and maintain the highest levels of conduct. This includes mutual respect, robust discussion, and allowing city business to be done in an efficient and consistent manner. Please note that, as the presiding officer, the mayor's direction in matters of process and decorum should be followed. Welcome, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you, Rod. Appreciate that. Okay, we have approval of minutes for May 16th. Is there a motion? Motion second? Lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. Approval of the special meeting of May 17th.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, I mixed them up. I'm supposed to abstain on the 16th. I made a mistake. I thought it
Okay,
was 17th.
Rod, do you have that? Okay, so noted. May 17th. Motion? Motion second? Lights on the motion? And that passes unanimously. Continuances and exceptions? City
No, Mayor,
Manager?
none from staff?
I have a few items on consent calendar, but I'll wait till we get to the consent calendar to ask that we continue to the next council meeting. Anyone else? Councilmember Kolstad.
Sorry, Mayor, I wanted to abstain on the second set of minutes
On the 17th?
on the 17th.
So, City Clerk? Okay, so noted, thank you. Any continuances or exceptions from the council? Seeing none from the public? Okay, seeing none, we will now move on to our special order of business. And we're so excited and proud today to have Santa Clara County Supervisor Ken Yeager here in the audience. And we have a presentation and a proclamation. And I'm actually going to turn this over to Vice Mayor Caserta, who requested that this item be on the agenda. Thank you, Dominic, for doing that. If you'd like to make the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council, for supporting us. And we're so lucky to have Ken and Gabrielle here, who are both leaders, not only from an elected position, but also as president of the Billy DeFrank Center, who lead and let us know you can't be free unless you're equal. So I know Ken and Gabrielle are going to say a few words, and Madam Mayor, if my indulgence, we have a bunch of whereases here. I'd just like to read two of them out loud to the community. Whereas the Stonewall riots in New York City on June 28, 1969 was a historic turning point that sparked the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender civil rights movement. LGBTQ pride celebrations have taken place every June in recognition of the Stonewall riots, and I was honored to represent the city on June 1st when the President of the Board of Supervisors had that grand opening. And then the last paragraph, whereas on June 13th, 2012, the city of Santa Clara adopted ordinance number 1899 to protect and safeguard the rights and opportunities of all persons to be free from all forms of arbitrary discrimination, including discrimination based on age, race, color, creed, religion, national origin, ancestry, disability, marital status, sex, gender identity, and sexual orientations. And I know, Mayor, the vested power of you have allowed us to have this today, and I appreciate you having us do this and celebrate June. And I know our supervisor has a great suggestion as well, and I know we'll come down and take a picture with him. Ken, do you mind coming up here for a second? And Gabrielle, do you mind coming up as well, please? Both of you are pioneer leaders in our community. Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, thank you, and it's wonderful to be here for this great occasion. If I have one message for you, it's to tell you how important it is that proclamations that you're issuing today, how important that is, not only for all of the citizens who live in Santa Clara, but maybe even more relevant for your employees. I think we know that any disenfranchised group believes that when you interact with a government entity or even with a person, that there's going to be ill will towards you because we're just used to having that kind of hatred and animosity with people that we contact. And so we're assuming there's going to be some sort of disenfranchisement, some sort of unequal treatment. And it's only when we hear from people that know we are accepting of you, we value you, that we then really begin to be a little bit more relaxed and say, okay, this is going to be a safe place for me to be. And when you don't do proclamations, then the signal is, well, either we're against you or we don't care about you. And so I've been working with a lot of different cities and organizations over the years, and getting these kinds of proclamations has not been easy. In the old days, you couldn't use the word pride. You had to use other words because people were so nervous about sort of saying you were in favor of gay and lesbian pride. So I value what you're doing very much. I should also say at the county, we're very fortunate that we fly the rainbow flag every workday. And not only is that a good signal for anybody coming in and doing business, because it really is an affirmation, but for all of the county employees, it also says that we value you, we support you, we honor you, and this is a place that you can come and work and that you're going to get promoted and you won't be discriminated against. So June is Gay Pride Month, and so this is when we have these official proclamations and the flag raising, and it really means a lot to our community. So I just wanted to thank you, Dominic, for doing that, and the entire council for your support. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name's Gabrielle Antolovich. Woohoo. And I just want to say thank you to Supervisor Ken Yeager, because when he was a San Jose City Council member, he actually fought for the Billy DeFrank LGBT Community Center building to remain after there was a lot of controversy around it. So thank you that we have the building still, because more than ever, we need our community center and we need the support of everyone. You, our elected officials, we need the support for many different reasons. I don't know if I told you, Ken, but the last week I was in the County Board of Supervisors chamber. This man came up to me and he had a book that was covered, and I said, "What's that?" And he said, "It's a Bible and you're going to hell." And I was so shocked. You know what my response was? I know you're going to laugh. I said, we have anti-discrimination policies here, and it's not appropriate to talk like that in the county board of chambers, you know. And he said, I have a right to hate. And I'm going, oh my God, I haven't heard this in so long. I turned to the deputy sheriff and I said, is there anything you can do about that? And he said, the Constitution gives people the right to be that way. And that disturbs me. It really does. And I don't want that to happen. And I, as a leader in the community who have weathered more than that, if it's shocking me, it is shocking my community. And we don't want that infiltrating anywhere. So your continued support as leaders and allies is more than ever important. And yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of Orlando. And what can I say? You know, we don't want another Orlando. We don't want the continuation of hate that we are seeing around the country. And I am glad that both Ken and I are here. Thank you.
Thank you so
Madam
much.
Mayor, by
Yes.
consensus, could we look into about the rainbow flag as well? And that's something, a standard of practice we could look at doing down the road?
Yes.
Thank
Is
you.
that- We're okay? Okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dominic. Teresa?
Yes, I just wanted to say that through my work on AIDS issues, I was a partner with the Billy DeFrank Center for like 20 years through the Walk for AIDS and the AIDS Coalition. And so we appreciate all the support that we got from the LGBTQ community as we continue to fight against AIDS. And I also wanted to acknowledge that it was my predecessor in Seat 7, Councilwoman Jamie McLeod, who was the one that led the charge on getting the anti-discrimination ordinance in Santa Clara. So I just thought it would be appropriate as the first out lesbian to be elected in Santa Clara County to acknowledge all the work that she put in for years to make that happen.
Thank you, Teresa, for mentioning that, because she did work so hard, and that was her last act as a council member to do that. Councilmember Watanabe?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add that the mayor and myself had the pleasure of being a part of the anti-protest rally down in San Jose on Saturday. And as much as it was in support of the Muslim community, it was still it incorporated so many other groups that are discriminated against. And so it was really an honor to be a part of that and to be in support of, you know, just every group that that is affected, you know, by hate and just racism. And so again, you know, we're proud to be a part in supporting you in this tonight.
Thank you. I also wanted to say the Billy DeFrank Center has been just, you know, a jewel in the community, also for our Santa Clara residents too. You provide so many services. But I want to commend Supervisor Yeager, because when you were a San Jose City Councilman and your entire time as on the Board of Supervisors, you've been such an advocate and worked so hard when it was so hard, and it still is hard, but it was harder way back when for what you did. But you really truly believed in what you were doing, and you stood up for everything you believed it, and you really lived it, you walked it, you talked it, and you're really a man of integrity, and you've really taken this so far that it's just amazing what you've done, and you've never wavered from what you believe in. And I personally admire that so much, and I know there's so many members in the community that do. So thank you for everything you've done. When it was so hard to do, you still did it. So thank you, and congratulations. And we have the proclamation we're all talking about. If you would join us down here, we would love to take our photos with both of you. This is the official. One, two. This is our social calendar for June and July 2017. So, no, I know. Hi, Eversley, how are you? Are
Real
you
good,
alone
and you?
today?
I'm alone.
Okay, very
I'm
good.
alone.
Tell us what's happening and where we need to be.
A PowerPoint?
Yes, thank you.
Let's see, am I trained on this now? Point at the computer? All right, there we go. Okay, so now is when the party starts in Santa Clara.
Great,
It's summer.
great.
All right, so we're going to be posting everything on our Facebook page, all the different events coming up. Some things we do throughout the year, the concerts in the park, Friday Night Live, which will be kicking off in the fall again. I could have used it too, get a little
Try
more
to take
airtime
her
there.
flag.
And commemorative months. And one of our commemorative months we're going to be celebrating is June, LGBTQ Awareness Month. And I could have used that flag now. See?
The prop.
So look to our website, the commission page, for more events which we'll be posting about and different facts about LGBTQ. And we are proud to recognize that this month as a commemorative month for that event. So, and moving on a little bit here, forward. Okay, this Friday evening, we are going to kick off our summer concerts. Private Label Band, this is their first time coming to Santa Clara to perform. And we want to make sure we get people out there to give them a big welcome. And there is a typo in the activities guide which went out. So it says in the activities guide, all the summer concerts start at 8 p.m. Everyone listening out there, all the Friday night concerts start at 6:30 p.m. So make sure you get out there early, spread the word. Private Label Band is a high-energy rock band, and they do all the biggest dance hits that you can imagine, and they're really fun. It's their first time coming here. They've been requesting to perform in Santa Clara for several years. We finally got them in. So that will be this Friday evening at the Central Park Pavilion.
It's going to be really nice weather, too. Very warm.
Well, it's going to be like 90-something degrees on Friday. You don't want to be home. It's too hot inside.
Too hot.
Too hot. Come out to the
6:30.
park, nice shade, bring food, family, friends. Perfect place to be. All right, Friday, July 7th. We would have planned more in June, but we have some other big events that are going to be coming up, so we didn't want to conflict with those events the next few weeks. So Friday, July 7th, Orquesta Latin Heat Salsa Band. We've had them perform the last couple of years, and each time they perform, they set new attendance records for our concerts. So we keep inviting them back. When you leave their concert, you have a smile on your face. You feel good, all right? And so definitely come check them out Friday, July 7th. And then we start our much requested and anticipated Sunday concerts again. We had especially a request from the senior community in Santa Clara to bring back the Sunday concerts. So we're bringing them back. The first one will be Sunday, July 16th with the Johnny Neri Band. And Rock and Soul. They performed in Santa Clara several times. And very nice, energetic band from the Bay Area, from the South Bay. Definitely want to see them on Sunday afternoon, July 16th. And then Friday, July 21st, Blues Time. We booked one of the best blues bands in the South Bay. They've just have a great following. It's going to be at 6:30 p.m. at the Central Park Pavilion on Friday, July 21st. And then on Sunday, July 30th, 2:30 p.m., the Lyritones. It is a 17-piece orchestra, and they perform throughout the Bay Area, and you might think it's an older group for an older crowd. Oh no, they perform for all age ranges, from younger to when they've performed here before up to like 90-somethings were coming to this concert, okay? So they're really good, and no matter what age you are, you want to come check out the Lyritones because they are that good. And that's going to be on Sunday, July 30th, and that's all I got for you for this update.
So every concert is at the Central Park Pavilion.
Yes,
everyone.
throughout the summer, the concerts will be at the Central Park Pavilion, except for the street dance, and we'll talk about that more next month.
And it's a beautiful place for a concert.
There is,
Really,
I haven't seen a better
beautiful.
place anywhere in the South
Yeah,
Bay
I
for
agree.
those evening concerts. The weather is perfect. It's never too hot. It's never too cold. The lighting is perfect. You can bring food. You can even barbecue if you really wanted to. It's perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds perfect. See you Friday.
Yep.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and thank the commission, please. Okay, next we have a presentation by the Santa Clara Chamber of Commerce Convention Visitors Bureau on the operation of the Santa Clara Convention Center and associated services for fiscal year 2017-18. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just a minor clarification on the subject. This is really not a presentation on the operations of the convention center.
Yeah, it was a little.
Yeah,
little
so this could be slightly
questioning
misleading.
that.
This is,
Okay.
council had previously asked about the operations of the Convention Visitors Bureau.
So this is
which-
CVB,
This is
right?
CVB,
Only
and
marketing,
the
right?
text, in the text
Okay.
of the memo, it says that, but the subject could be misleading a little bit. Just to share with the members of the public, the operations of the convention center, we are going on a separate parallel path on that one. We've hired the consulting firm JLL. They're looking into operational models, and they'll come back to the council in the next several months. This is today, and the reason we put it before the budget, not that it impacts the budget, but annually, city enters into an agreement with CVB, and we fund roughly about $1.5 million for those activities to market the city and the convention center and other things. So today's presentation, Lisa Moreno, the director, I think that's the right title? General Manager of Convention Center. She will make the presentation today on CVB and share with us how that funding is utilized and what are the marketing activities. And then our recommendation to council, when the agreement comes to you on June 27th, will be to continue for one more year and then combine that with the operations of the convention center, make a bigger decision next year, during the next year process. So today, it's only a presentation on CVB as to how city's funding is utilized for marketing and other purposes.
So thank you for that clarification, because there's a draft agreement on the agenda, so we're not voting on that, we're just listening, and
Just
then
listening
this is coming
today.
back the 27th
27th for the actual-
for decision.
That's
Okay.
correct. Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Please come forward. Good evening.
Mayor and City Council. As Rajiv said, we're here tonight to talk about the CVB operation. So I'll take you through the overall operations, give you a broader understanding of who we are and what we do as a CVB. Can you change to the next slide, please? Oh, I have it right here. Got it. Okay, so as Rajiv said, it's an annual contract, so we are looking to renew the fiscal year annual CVB operations agreement, and it will come up for your approval on June 27th. And with that, we are going to update some of what we do in the processes, and one of those will be a monthly invoice. I think, Debbie, you mentioned getting some form of paperwork trail, so we are going to work on that. And we're also going to take any suggestions from the council, whether it be now or any other time as relates to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, any other questions you have on whether it's how we're funded, the marketing. And also, we did previous presentations, both to the Marketing Fund and the Economic Development Committee. So those two presentations have also been done tonight. And historically, we're going to go over really what we do. It's from a historical standpoint, and then we'll also talk about new metrics, things that we're going to do moving forward to improve our processes, which is our future model. So we are working with JLL, like Rajiv said, for the Convention Center and the CVB. And our vision is to position Santa Clara as the premier Silicon Valley experience and destination for entertainment, sports, leisure, and business events. Our mission, to serve as a destination and marketing organization for the city of Santa Clara, working with partners throughout the city to increase economic growth, foster tourism, and provide exceptional service to our visitors and community. And the CVB and Convention Center's objective is to produce economic impact and good fiscal managers, which will increase the city of Santa Clara's general fund. And some of the ways is through delegate visitor spending, convention center and hotel revenue, delivery of city tax, which could be sales tax or any other taxes that are applicable. The Tourism Improvement Districts, also known as the TID, which is an assessment, $1 from each hotel room from 9 hotels. And the Transient Occupancy Tax, the TOT. And then the CFT, which is the Community Facility Tax. And here's a brief overview. Sometimes it's hard to get some of these spreadsheets on the, but this is in a packet. Yeah. In any, okay, the CVB proposed budget is in your packet as well. I know, it's a little small.
Can't see either.
So the convention, sales, and marketing, because there's 3 different areas, is, I'm sorry? Oh, okay. So yeah, I know it's small, I'm sorry. But this is the proposed budget. So we have a total ask of $1,486,951. We did have a beginning balance of $801,000, which means that money wasn't spent, and so that money gets taken away from whatever ask that it is. And some of the expenses are rent, office expenses, audits, the audit that's done annually, and then of course the visitor marketing communications. They do different types of marketing through social media, and there's another slide that I'll come to later on, which gives a more in-depth description about what some of the other departments do. And then there's also the TID proposed budget. The TID, Tourism Improvement District, they give the CVB money also to market and to pay for 3 different employees to do the sales, communications, and marketing. And the sources of revenue generated, again, delegate visitor spending, which is hotels, restaurants, retail, transportation, and entertainment. And the 5-year CVB total for TOT generated through the past 5 years, as you can see, it's increased 50% over the past 5 years. And so some of the bars also include CVB-generated TOT tax, and then CVB-generated CFD, which actually took place in 2014, and the CVB-generated TID tax. And the convention center, I put this up there because the convention center, we do some sales, but the CVB does a lot of sales, obviously, for the convention center to bring in revenue. So a large part of what we generate is through the efforts of the CVB. And this revenue here shows the money from catering, telecommunications, audiovisual, any other event revenue, and space rental. And we've been tracking in the positive for several years now. However, if you do take this budget, there are some other things in consideration as it relates to the money put back into the general fund, because there is a district that we pay into, as well as any CIPs that are related to the convention center. And convention and sales and marketing, the target markets are citywide groups, which is a primary focus, because bringing those groups in also gives compression to some of the other hotels in the area. Sports is another large focus now with all the sports facilities that we now have in Santa Clara. SMERF, which is social, military, educational, religious, and fraternal. Convention center, we also do some in-house bookings through that, as well as the TID hotels, which they call in-house. So if the CVB gets a lead that can't go to the convention center, but it needs a smaller venue, those leads are then sent out to the TID hotels. And then state, regional, and national associations with emphasis on state and regional need period groups. Some of those groups can pay the higher room rates that we sometimes see during the week. Some of the groups during need periods can't pay as high as other groups can. So the need periods are holiday weekends, primarily in July and August, and then part of November and December. These are where a lot of times the hotels are empty, so they need the weekend business, so that you don't want to have the hotels sitting empty on those times, so we do what we can to help them bring in the business. And then convention sales and marketing generate and process inquiries, leads, city site tours, and full city proposals and bid presentations annually. produce group bookings for the convention center, hotels, and other off-site Santa Clara venues, resulting in increased revenue for the city and surrounding businesses. And Convention sells the marketing strategy. They do exhibit it in some industry trade shows. They meetings also to market the city as well as the convention center, and sales calls, site inspections, presentations to prospective businesses, so they can go out to a company like Cap and Graham and do a presentation to bring those meeting planners and their business into the city. And then advertising in some publications, social media, and directories. And I also put the number of events of the convention center to also show you just the sheer amount of events that we do have coming into the convention center of all different types. The conventions, trade shows, public shows, meetings, and banquets. And the total for last fiscal year, because we're not done with this fiscal year, was 424 with over 350,000 delegates that came in. And visitor marketing and communication. This is where we go out and we communicate with different individuals to talk about our city, to not necessarily book the business, but to make them aware of who we are and where we are and what we have to offer. And we do that through trade travel, sales calls, presentations, websites, social media, and different sales campaigns. And these are the 3 target markets that we do through our websites. We have 3 different ones, and we get leads in, and there's also like Visit Santa Clara, who people that are coming to your city to visit can get information. They can get information on hotels and restaurants, different attractions. And I also have the face of each of the websites so you can kind of see what they look like. So this is a snapshot of their homepage. And this is Silicon Valley Meetings, where we get a lot of leads for actual inquiries for events. And then Santa Clara Convention Center, we also have our own website, which we also generate leads for what we call in-house business or fill-in business for the convention center. Those are events that have no hotel rooms. And the key metrics that we're talking about using moving forward to improve the processes of the convention center and the CVB, we want to show more monthly statements as to what is going on and to show the pace and the goal of what we're doing and comparative to year over year. So we have convention center citywides, again, in-hotel bookings, which are the other TID hotels, bookings tied to other venues such as Levi's Stadium, it could be Great America, leisure room night conversions, so we can find out if somebody came to find a room, did it actually convert into an actual stay? Because we get people all the time that come in, that go to the website, they want to go to Great America, and so sometimes it converts and sometimes it doesn't. And then for the convention center as well, our fiscal year results. So show monthly year-to-date, again, pace and goal compared to last year, revenue, expenses, and surplus or deficit. And then the new direction, again, we are working with the city and JLL to provide the foundation of building a stronger organization that will benefit the city and the stakeholders. And we are working on an extensive process to develop SOPs, which are standard operating procedures, and innovate marketing plans for the next 5 years. We are creating a model that will focus on conversion and tracking reports. We will work with Levi's Stadium and Great America to sell our campus environment to attract larger citywide groups that will utilize all venues as one. We've already been through that with WWE, Super Bowl 50, and College Championship, which is upcoming in January of 2019. Some of the possibilities, too, is some of the large corporations, if you go out and pitch your idea, you can have your meetings at the convention center, you can do offsites at Great America, and also use Levi's Stadium for the larger groups. And our sales team are going to work closely with both of those entities to go out as a team. And the future direction with the related project, California's Great America project, and the possibility of a convention center, either expansion and or renovation, we believe will become a more desirable renovation to bring in much needed hotels, restaurants, and entertainment. So with everything going on in Santa Clara, it's a great time to think about how we move forward to create a bigger and brighter future. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Yes, let's see from the council. Questions? Councilmember Davis.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I've been waiting for this for months, and you're here. Great job. I'm glad that, we got that partnership going with the 49ers and everybody, because that was like the big hole in the, so anyway, but now, and I like the future prospects. I mean, that's good to me. To me, that is, you're selling the city. I mean, it's what I wanted. I like the 5-year plan. I mean, I think that's good because that gives us a nice target. And like I said, hopefully we'll change that convention center to take some of these tech companies, because I think it's a spacing issue with them.
Yeah, part of it is.
That is, just seems to be the configuration or whatever it is, but I like to get all those people back into Santa Clara, so thank
Absolutely.
you for the report.
You're welcome.
Vice Mayor Caserta?
Thank you for your presentation. I know in our committee, we're working on it with Councilmember Kolstad and Mahan. My question is, and I know we've come a long way on this, how do we try and capture when vendors come here that we'd like to try and hire qualified local people as much as possible that will take their wages and put it back into our city? So can you talk about that process?
As it relates to who the clients hire, because the clients do, speaking to that, they hire a service contractor, an electrician, and they would come into the convention center and do business with them. That is solely on the client themselves as to who they wish to hire. We do have some vendors in the convention center, which you may or may not know, which is Aramark Food Service. They're exclusive, so we do solely 100% of the food and beverage. We have an audiovisual company who is not exclusive. The only thing they do exclusively is the rigging in the Mission City Ballroom. And other than that, you can actually bring in a vendor of your own so long as they have the correct insurance. Smart City Networks, who does the telecommunications, they have the exclusivity to our backbone because they help provide that and keep it clean. Other than that, people are allowed to bring in their own vendors. All vendors are required to have insurance. But other than that, we don't actually choose those vendors for that individual.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Thank you. So I'm glad to see the sports listed, because I know that Mayor and I have talked about like an opportunity. It seems like that we know a lot of families where their youngsters are involved in some kind of team sport or dance or cheer. And it seems like there's, I can't tell you, it seems like a lot of my friends, including the mayor, they travel a lot with their families to go to, having those sports events. And so, I think that the possibility of like maybe, I don't know, logistically, like to set up a lot of basketball courts or volleyball. I know I've seen some when I've been out at the convention center, but it does seem like that could be a good market for weekend business, or maybe some of those dead periods that you're talking about. That, particularly the summers, maybe the kids are doing more, more tournaments or competitions. So I would encourage that. And I'm just kind of curious, because I know in the past it's been kind of difficult to measure the connection between activities at the convention center and hotel bookings, because that has been, it's great to see that the center has been operating in the black the last couple of years. I think a lot of us do remember that, it's been up and down, and the thinking was that it's okay to run a deficit at the convention center if it's helping you generate the business for the hotels and the restaurants, and we hope to have more retail in Santa Clara there. So are you, when you talked about developing a dashboard of metrics, do you feel like you have a better way now to kind of make that connection, to know, did we impact like hotel bookings, particularly our hoteliers are, they're paying into the tourism improvement and all that. So do you have a better way to have a handle on that?
We actually do have a lot of reporting and metrics. So we know, for instance, one of those reports would show that we brought in $1.2 million in total TOT tax just from the business into the convention center. So we do have metrics to that effect. We are going to continue to improve those processes to see where we can connect more. But to also answer your earlier question, even though convention centers are usually a loss leader, we do and always have tried to run like a business. There is a delicate balance between running like a business at the convention center and generating the revenue, which we've been fortunate to do over the years, as well as then providing those hotel rooms. So putting those heads in beds and making sure that we collectively bring in the business, particularly because we're attached to a higher Regency. So those are the balances our team, as well as the Hyatt team, try to work together to evaluate those pieces of business. And sometimes it's a challenging balance because the hotel knows that they can make a lot of money, and sometimes we're not making that much money off that group. And sometimes, like in October, is a very busy month for us. So we try to book the best piece of business as relates to also the revenue generated by food and beverage, audio visual, and smart city. There are sometimes convention center could book $500,000 in business alone without hotel rooms. So it's a delicate balance to do that.
Okay. So do you get a commission from the other providers there? You mentioned like the AV and the backbone and all of that.
Yeah, and if you look at the convention center revenue, it will show you a breakdown of that revenue. So yes, we do.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Watanabe?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add on to what Councilmember O'Neill was just saying, that I've actually talked with Lisa about possibly bringing a basketball tournament to Santa Clara. There's a group called Jam On It, and that my daughter has participated in their tournaments the last 2 years up in Reno. And Carrie Kiesecker has been out to to one of the tournaments, and to find out how much space they needed. And actually, our convention center does have the required space that they would need to put on the kind of tournament that they've been putting on. So there is some continued discussion, and we're hoping next year that something will come to fruition.
Yeah. And we do have volleyball, and we have gymnastics, and then there's some others that can or cannot be described as sports, like chess, but that's a sport to some people. So we do and have for many years. We are open to doing the sports, and we are, again, going after that market stronger.
Sorry. Just one last thing.
Go
Do you often get responses that our convention center isn't big enough for? I mean, I know it's not. San Jose's added on, and obviously it's nothing like Moscone. But do the people that you are approaching or that are coming to look at Santa Clara, do they kind of know our size? Are we getting that input? Like, gee, you have a nice center here, but we can't use it because it's not big enough.
Yes, we do. And an example of the large events that we're using as an example to go after with the campus environment, one of them was WWE WrestleMania, which was the first large event at the stadium. Unfortunately, the convention center lost their fanfare because we weren't large enough. It went to San Jose Convention Center. They needed 150,000 contiguous square feet. We have 100,000. There are groups that actually grow out of us. We used to call ourselves the incubator, particularly in the high-tech industry. So there are groups, we have a couple now that are really great pieces of business between hotel rooms and other revenue, and they're growing out of us. So yes, we do get that as well.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
I had a couple questions, Lisa. How, in terms of the hotel rooms and probably the lack of hotel rooms in the area and the use of the hotel rooms by businesses, how are you booking, marketing Santa Clara, knowing that there's a limited amount of hotel rooms and the prices are quite high? How is that changing, or is it changing the way you're marketing the convention center in terms of the types of business you're looking for?
Sometimes it does, and one of the markets that we like to stay with for a long time is association, because associations, even though they grow and downsize a little bit, they always do events. So in these times when you have a high demand, particularly midweek, when you have upwards of $400 per night, it's very challenging for those. But we do go out and look for the corporate market. We also work closely with the hotels to see what their availability is and see what they can or cannot book in a particular time frame. And that's what a lead does. It goes out and it helps us identify the hotel rooms and the cost. So yes, we have the lack of inventory, so that has created, and we do have records of lost business, and it could be based on room nights, it could be based on costs or size. So we do actually have reports of all that. So that can be a challenge. Just like when I met with the Economic Development Committee, one of the things is the desire to expand, which is great. But a feasibility study is typically done to make sure you have the right infrastructure before you spend that kind of money in expanding, whether it be parking, whether it be hotel rooms. So all of those things we did it when we did the Mission City Ballroom as well.
So what type of convention are you marketing for now?
Well, we
in
mark
terms of-
for all the markets. We do, depending on the time of year as well, because associations will tend to meet sometimes, or religious groups, and the SMRF will also look at their need periods. So we're actually looking at all the markets. We're going out there, and we're also targeting some of the groups that can pay the higher rates. But some of the challenge becomes as well is that the pattern, sometimes like a Tuesday through Thursday, is a business pattern. So you have to go out and find different businesses that do different patterns as well. But again, working closely with the hotels to help identify and also go out together, because the Hyatt Regency could have a big piece of business and they would use the convention center as an overflow.
Okay, and to follow up, I think Councilmember O'Neill said that, how do you track? I know in the past, you've come to us, not you personally, but come to us and said, we have, so many nights blocked in a hotel. Well, how does that convert to nights that are actually booked and paid for? I mean, those are two different things. So
Yeah.
is it getting easier to track that, or are you focusing on making sure the results of a
track
particular
that.
convention?
So if I'm a client, I do room blocks with hotels. So I will block 500 rooms. And at the end of the event, I'll see a conversion rate. Did I block 300 rooms, or did I even block larger? So that is something, yes, we do
You
keep
track
track of.
that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from council? Okay. Seeing none. So this is an information-only item. All right. Are there any cards? Thank you.
You're
Lisa.
welcome.
Any cards on this item? Any member of the public like to speak on this item? Please come forward.
We just heard a lot of information about the convention center, but I didn't hear really any information about how they market the city. And I thought we were going to hear something about how the city is marketed. So I'd like to hear how the city's marketed and what kind of benefits they have about marketing the city and what kind of shortcomings they find out and what the city's lacking or what the city has that is a draw besides, people trying to go to a football game or seeing a concert. But I'd like to hear more information about how they're marketing the city and how they're successful or what shortcomings we have and what we have for that. She also mentioned TOT, and TOT, my understanding, is just attached to hotel rooms. So everything we heard was just the convention center. So isn't there a separate group that does the city, or is just the convention center all they're doing? So is there two separate groups? Is it all the same group? I'm very confused, and the fact that how it was presented in the agenda was confusing to start with. So are we paying for both, paying for one? I thought we were separating the two. It's not any clearer now after that presentation when there was no information given. Do we have any people that know the city? Do we have any certified planners that work for this, doing this? I mean, I know Lisa's worked for the convention center, but I didn't know she worked for the Bureau. So if we could get clarification on that, it would be interesting to hear that too. Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe after the public presentations, I can ask Lisa to come on up and clarify some issues. Welcome.
Sam Hagag here. I just have a very simple question, which is, what kind of metrics do they use to track how well or how poorly any of their kind of marketing campaigns? I mean, whether it's website metrics, program metrics, filling the hotels, with heads on the beds metrics. So I just wanted to see what kind of metrics they use to validate that, we keep doing the same thing over and over. Are things getting better because WrestleMania just happened to be here this year, or are they actually improving because of the methods that the Visitors Bureau is using?
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Lisa, do you mind coming back, answering a couple questions or making some clarifications? The first is on the Convention Visitors Bureau, and your efforts in marketing the city of Santa Clara?
My name is Mike Sellers.
There's
and
various
I'm the
ways we
police
do
for the
that.
city of Santa
One is
Clara.
David Andre,
I've
who
been a
does the
police officer for over
visitors
30
and
years, and I
communication.
can't imagine working
He
anywhere
will
else.
work with
If you are
different
looking
travel
for an exciting
organizations
and
to bring
rewarding
people
career in law
into the city.
enforcement,
Matter of fact,
please
today he
consider
actually
joining the
had
Santa Clara
a lady
family.
come in. I'm sorry,
I
David.
look forward to meeting you really soon. And enjoy our recruiting video.
We can't hear when you're back there, so maybe David, if you'd
I'll
like
have
to
David
come
explain a
forward.
little bit about that because he actually helps also bring in a lot of visitors here for various reasons. And then one of the things that we're doing is a marketing campaign. A lot of that is through digital advertising, in which we get leads from that will bring in bookings. And when they do that, they market the whole city in that they tell the story about Santa Clara. So it's not just come to the convention center, it's come to the city, and that's where some of the trade shows that the sales team goes to. They go sometimes with many different cities, you name it, San Jose, Oakland, San Diego. There's shows, there's a travel summit that you also go to. There's various different types of avenues in which to market a city.
And I know at our marketing committee, we hear a lot about this and what David's doing and what the CVB is doing on behalf of the city of Santa Clara. So it's nice to hear it here in the chambers for the public. So David, if you'd like to come
just an
forward.
example of what he did all day today.
Thank you. Just give us just an idea of the types of things that you do on behalf of the city of Santa Clara.
Okay, well, just not all day today, but just this afternoon for a few hours, I got a last-minute call from a travel editor who actually was at the U.S. Travel Association powwow show in Washington, D.C., and then she flew to San Francisco because she does a guidebook, San Francisco and Silicon Valley. Well, she does, in her guidebook, at least 3 or 4 pages dedicated to Santa Clara, which includes translated material in Japanese, includes many of our restaurants, many of our hotels, Great America, our center, et cetera. So she wanted to update her book, which is I think it's one of the top selling travel guidebooks in Japan. So what did I do? I took her to Santa Clara University. I took her to the Intel Museum. I took her to the Marriott Hotel. I took her to Parcel 104. I took her to the Santa Clara Convention Center. I took her to California's Great America. I took her to Santa Clara Square, all in 2.5 hours this afternoon. And so the people in Japan, there's a flight into San Jose from Japan. Other thing I'd like to talk to, one gentleman mentioned something about metrics. Obviously, the hotels need weekend business. We produce a hotel packages page where we send out a form to the hotels and we have them give us their rate for 2 tickets to Great America and a room night for Friday, Saturday night. We create a page, santaclara.org/hotel packages. We advertise that page in Sacramento, Greater Sacramento, and Fresno and Central Valley Corridor. When people go to that page, we put outbound links on the page, so when we send a web visitor to the hotel reservation booking page, we track that every month. So we know how successful our campaign is. So that's an example of some of the metrics that we use to track what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. All right. Lisa, did you have anything to finish?
Lisa, while you're up there, you can clarify your role with CVB also.
Yes. Tell us your
I'm
positions.
the general manager and CEO of the Santa Clara Convention Center and Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, so there's no action on this. Is this a note and file for now, and we're bringing this back on the 27th?
Move that we note and file the report. Second.
Motion, second, to note and file the report, and it will come back on the contract will come back on the 27th. Thank you very much for your presentations, and that passes unanimously. Okay, next we have, the joint public hearing. And this is a city council acting as a governing board of the Sports and Open Space Authority and Housing Authority to take the following actions. Approval of the city's 2017-2018 annual operating budget of $728,856,031, including the adjustments as noted in the 2017-18 summary of changes to proposed budget detailed in attachments A through C. That's one. Second is approval of the capital improvement program budget of $126,964,298, including the adjustments as noted in the 2017-18 summary of changes to proposed budget detailed in attachments A and D through G. And third is approval of the Housing Authority 2017-18 budget of $143,126. And for approval of the Sports and Open Space Authority 2017-18 budget of $2,406,868. City Manager, if you'd like to kick it off.
Thank you very much, Mayor and members of the council. Very exciting for me to present this annual budget to you. As you mentioned, it's the annual operating budget as well as the CIP, along with SOSA and the Housing Authority. So this is public presentation. The flow will be, we'll make a short presentation, although it's a $728 million budget. But we've had a couple of study sessions, and we've received your guidance and comments, as well as the public comments. And then after that, I'll have the Acting Director of Finance, Angela Kretsch, come forward and walk us through the numbers. Once again, mostly to remind everyone what the budget contains. And after that, we can have some questions again. Our recommendation is today for you to approve the budget. Going forward. If there are minor changes or suggestions, we can always bring them back to you through the ERATA memo that we do early in July.
I ask you that because I think there might be some changes to the budget as well. So we would approve the main budget, and then the errata memo would come on the 27th. Is that how that works, or we would approve it subject to? We can, if we can do it on the 27th, we can do that too. But as long as you approve the budget by the end of June, we are okay. And the
then
changes on the
errata can come
27th?
afterwards.
Okay,
Now,
thank you.
I'm hoping that whatever you ask is not a big thing because it's a balanced budget. And obviously, you know, it's a zero-sum game. If you're adding certain things, we may have to give up certain things. On the other hand, you know, there's some flexibility in the sense that my staff calls me frugal. There's city manager's budget. There's this discretionary.
Is that what they call you?
Yes.
Okay.
So discretionary funding. I'm tight on money, and depending on what you're asking today, if that can be accommodated within certain other budget items that you're approving anyway, we will accommodate.
Thank you very much. Okay, thanks for that.
So with that.
Okay.
So with that, okay, next slide, please. All right, so this is, I won't go over each and every date, but this is the process we've been following. We started this whole thing in January when the council adopted the budget principles. And this is also to show you that at your direction, and we've been doing that for the last, at least starting last year, that we went to the Citizen Advisory Committee, initially in February, and you'll see that we went one more time. And then we've gone through the study sessions and so on and so forth. Next slide. And as you can see, on May 22nd, we went back to the Citizen Advisory Committee. And then we had another study session in May, and here we are today for the public hearing before the adoption of the budget. Next slide. I just wanted to just share with you, these are not all the questions that you had asked at the study sessions, but I just wanted to give you examples of some of the things that were asked that you know, whether we've looked at ideas to generate more revenue, how was the property tax projection calculated, how could we increase TOT, and can the convention visitor bureau, the presentation you saw today in this, can they begin invoicing the city instead of city making the lump sum?
We can cross that one off, right?
Yeah, that has already been done. So these are just examples, and there are many more questions, and I just wanted to point to you, in your report, there is a section that has all the questions with staff's responses to that. Next slide, please. So just an overview that the total budget is $728 million. and positions have been added. We talked about 27 positions, and Angela will come up and give us more details on that. We are also maintaining the 25% working capital reserve. I'll come back at the end of the presentation and talk about some of the things as to what potential changes could be made, and that there's no capital project reserve funding set aside in this budget. We have enough money to do projects, but this is something that you should be aware of going to the future. When you see the 5-year numbers, as you saw in the study sessions, there's a potential deficit because of several reasons. And then the total CIP is 127 million, and we have about 226 active projects. So with that, at this point, let me invite Angie to come up, and she'll walk us through numbers, and
Okay,
then
very
we'll
good.
conclude that.
Thank you. Your first official budget.
I know,
As the
it is
finance
exciting.
director. Thank you.
Thanks. First, I just wanted, I know I've said this before, but I would like to thank these people right here in this row that do this budget. Marcella Pena, which is our budget manager, Felicia Lee, Randy Petrosky, and then we also have Robert, I always struggle with his name, Valentukonis, and Alita Ridiker. They're also on the budget team. So you can see 5 people put these big documents together, and it's a lot of work.
She's also reminding me that I forgot to recognize them.
Yes, thank you.
I was trying to be very correct, yeah. And a lot of these slides are, you've seen them before in the study sessions, but we thought we'd bring them back. So there's, as the city manager mentioned, the total budget is $728.9 million. The general fund is $218.9 million. The increases on the third column over, you can see the general fund is increasing by $17.5 million, or 9%, over the 16-17 adopted. And the next the bigger increase is also in the enterprise funds, which is $42.1 million, or 10%. So the total increase from 16-17, bottom line, is $62 million, or 9%. A summary of the full-time equivalent positions. We did add the 27 positions, as the city manager mentioned. 21.6 of those positions are in the general fund. There were no changes in the special revenue funds or the internal service funds. And there were 5.4 positions added to the enterprise funds, for a total of 27. And this shows you a breakdown by department in the general fund of the 21.6 positions. You can see that in the community development department, we added 8 positions, and 6 of these are paid for by the building inspection reserves. And this is due to the increase in development. And then the other big increases in police, and this is due to filling per the staffing studies that were approved. And the enterprise funds, here is the description of where the positions fall of the 5.4 positions, with 7 being in electric, and then the water actually decreased, and so did solid waste. So moving to the general fund, as I mentioned earlier, it's a $218.9 million budget, and these are the revenues that come into the general fund. And as you can see with the arrows in the box, 131 million, or 59% of the general fund revenues, come from 3 sources, which are the property tax, sales tax, and transit occupancy tax. And this is the general fund appropriation by type. So you can see the biggest increase in this category is on salary and benefits, and that's in correlation with the employee increase in positions, and also some MOU negotiated increases. And this makes up 78% of the total general fund budget. So salary and benefits are a big driver in our budget. This is by department, so it's the same, showing you where the increases are. And as we mentioned, police, this is because of the staffing study and the full implementation of all those positions. And community development, again, is the increases due to those 8 positions being added, but they also have offsetting revenue. On the general fund reserves, we were able to fund the working capital, which is 25% of appropriations, or 3 months of operations. And that will give us projected 2017-18 ending balance of $55 million. We were not able to fund any into the capital projects reserve, which funds any CIP projects. And we are projecting that at the end of this year, we're hoping to have some reserves or some surplus left over to make this a $32.9 million to start out with. This chart shows you the dark blue is the CIP. So these are in the 6 years that they are already programmed out. But you can see if we can't add any more funds into the capital project reserve, that's slowly going to decrease until 21-22, we're going to be negative. And so we won't have enough to finish or complete projects that are in that year. On the enterprise funds, they are the budget here is $484.5 million. It's increasing by $42 million or 9%. The biggest increase being in the electric utilities. And special revenue funds, the one I won't go through all of these. The one I do want to show is the housing and urban development. It looks like this was a huge increase, $2.5 million, but this was previously in the CIP, but it works as an operating, so we moved it over into the operating budget. Just to quickly go over the CIP, because I know it's been further back, the operating was a little earlier. Enterprise funds are $102.1 million of this budget, so they make up the biggest portion of the $127 million. General government is $14.1 million, and street and highway funds make up $10.8 million. And just to give you a little explanation of how these are, what these pay for or do, and infrastructure, the street and highways is the street resurfacing, major road improvements, trail and bike planned expenditures, and these are just a couple of projects that we went over at the CIP study session. Just wanted to call them out. These are the amounts that we will be putting in the annual street maintenance of $4 million and the storm drain pump stations. And the same here with the general government funds. This is not solely funded by the capital project reserve. There's also developer contributions or development impact fees are also in these general government funds. So there's other sources of revenue, but these are some of the projects that were shown in the study session, so wanted to kind of highlight those also. And the enterprise funds, the same thing, we provides for the rehabilitation, upgrade, and major maintenance of enterprise facilities, and these are some of the projects that were presented to you during the CIP also. And one of the biggest ones being the San Jose, Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility, and $26.5 million in the 2017-18 budget. And so this is, again, I'm showing the 127 CIP budget, but I also wanted to show you that there is $140.2 million that's carried over from the previous year to make a total budget of $267.2. On the 5-year outlook, I wanted to show you how the grid works with the red being our expenditures, and then the green line being the revenues. So you can see here we are at 2017-18. We're balanced. The grid is meeting 2.8 or 218.9. But here at the very end, you see there's a big gap, and this is a $37.9 million deficit in 22-23. The biggest driver for this is the increase in the CalPERS rates. You can see I bolded in the 2017-18 numbers, and you can see how big the increase is going to get by 2022-23. Miscellaneous is going to increase to 46.9. So for every dollar, we'll be paying 46.9 cents. And same with police and fire safety plan, 67.6%. And here is the PERS expenditures. So here we are at 17-18. It's 41.2. It's going to increase in the 5 years to 73.2, which is an increase of 32 million or 78% by 2022-23. And here again, as the city manager mentioned, we are balanced. There was no surplus left over. Anything that we had left over, we put into the working capital reserve. And then in the out years, you can see that we have 5 years of projected deficits. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the city manager to wrap up.
Oh, on that
Thank you.
good note. Oh,
So-
great.
Mayor, as we talked about during the study session also, this is a balanced budget. However, because of some of the things which are beyond our control, like the PERS cost and other things, you will see a deficit in the next 5 years. But these are some of the thoughts I just wanted to leave with you for consideration in the future budgets. We have to start looking at this. And it's a big partnership with the residents also. So let me quickly go through those. Revenue growth, you've asked about that. So obviously we need new development. Now this budget doesn't include, for example, the city place revenue because, it's a 15, 20-year development project. And in the next 2-3 years, when the first phase is done, you might see a couple million, 3 million coming in. Overall, it may be 15 to 20 million. So that's a balancing thing. I mean, we do need new growth, new developments, but at the same time, we know the issues, and so that's the balancing we have to do. The future development revenue, that's kind of included in that. Under the revenue growth, we also need to look at, for example, the infrastructure fee citywide or something like that. We presented to you, for example, a storm drain master plan, and we drew the line at 50 million need, but there's no funding source for that. So it's those kind of things. So we have to start thinking in terms of a citywide infrastructure. I don't want to call it tax, but something that will generate that kind of revenue. Expenditure containment, obviously, we can't just freely just keep adding positions. And that's where, these are kind of interlinked in some ways. The last one, for example, I mentioned manage expectations. Yeah, we want to do everything, but everything means you have to add staff. Add staff means it continues to add to the cost, as we saw the PERS cost and so on and so forth. So that's another balancing act. Limited term employees. A lot of the cities around us, for example, Mountain View just advertised a couple positions. They are not offering positions for long-term, like a career or something. These are limited term positions, 1 or 2 year. That's how they advertise. Now, jury is still out whether that's a realistic thing or there's no negative doing that, and HR is looking into that. I think it's our charter also that needs to look at. So I was going to suggest we have a charter review committee, and once they're done with their current task, as future things come up or they're looking for things to do, this could be one of the items that they could look into the charter. Use of reserves. I just came up with this thought, we are required to have 25% working capital reserve, as Angie pointed out. Currently, we are at 55 million. So granted that, that's for a, kind of a bad scenario, there's an earthquake or flooding or whatever, we need to have 3 months worth of working capital. However, as the number keeps growing, should we really stick to 25%, or are we satisfied with, let's say, $40 million? And then the remaining 15 million can be put back into capital projects or other things. So something to think about as you go forward. PERS pension trust, the employer cost is beyond our control, but we need to engage with our own employees and see what can be done in partnership. Otherwise, if it's not a partnership, the only solution is then you have to lay off people. And we don't want to go there. We offer careers, but it's a partnership. So something to think about. Also, another suggestion is, budget study sessions beginning a little bit earlier. We started talking to you in February, March, and in May we had a couple budget study sessions. I think we need to engage a little bit earlier and to get better ideas, and really a study session. You pointed out yourself, the setting is like this. You're still sitting up there as council members, which is your place, but for study sessions, maybe just really engaging, sitting down here or going to an off-site place like the library, just sit around with the public, ideas can flow, and then that kind of discussion. So something to think about, and maybe new ideas can come up. Another thing we thought about is some of the agencies do that. I think VTA does it, and maybe the water district does it too. but a 2-year budget process. As you can see, we started the process in December, really. Every December, we start the budget process. And Angie pointed out there are 5 or 6 people directly involved in the finance department, and every department has staff who are supposed to do other things, deliver projects and programs, but they also get engaged in preparing the budget. So by doing a 2-year budget, I think that helps staff do other things too. And also, you can use the annual budget process like a mid-year process. So it's a 2-year process, or you could alternate. 1 year you could do CIP for 2 years, and the next year you could do operating for 2 years. So these are some of the thoughts, and I talked about managing expectations. Yes, we want to do everything, and members of the public will also come up and say Palo Alto is doing this, and Cupertino is doing that. Yeah, that's all good, but can't do everything. So we'll have to pick and choose, few priorities, and that's the purpose of those offsite meetings. When we get together, let's pick these 5 or 6 things and do them well, do them good, deliver them properly. So those are some of the thoughts. I just want to leave them with you for consideration in the future years as the revenues decline. Now, by the way, not to paint a very gloomy picture, but
I know,
this
I'm very gloomy right now.
this does not factor any recession and stuff like that. And as we know, economy is cyclical. Now, that could happen 3rd, 4th year out. We don't know. So we need to start thinking in terms of how do we continue to balance our budget in the future. So with that, I'll open it up for questions and your comments, and we'll go from there.
Very good. Thank you for the remarks. Thank you, Angie and staff, for the wonderful reports. This is a huge undertaking, huge, and we really appreciate you all look very tired, but thank you very much. It's much appreciated up here. So now we get to question you, Vice Mayor Caserta.
Yeah, questions and comments at the same time. I again, as I want to echo what the mayor said, I know this is a Herculean effort. I'm really proud of your staff, and things that I think that are positive. I appreciate the reinvestment in public safety. I know down the road we might need to look at fire as well. Rajiv, can you talk about, and this is right in your wheelhouse, we used to brag about not having potholes in Santa Clara, and we had an A+ rating, and we'd always brag about 105 Bay Area cities and all that great stuff. Where are we at right now? And I don't know if we'll get to, early 2000s anytime soon, but I think, no indictment of anyone, I think we all agree we need to do a little better just in regards to that. So can you tell us where you think we're at and what can we do to get closer to that level?
Sure. So we had a specific study session on that subject as well, if you recall, last year.
Yeah.
And we used to be at a PCI, which is Pavement Condition Index, by which you measure your street conditions. At one time, we were the valedictorians in this area, and we were at 86 or above. Right now, we are at about 73 or so. So it has been declining. And that's
Where does
again,
that rank us in the county now, would you say?
there's really no ranking. I mean, we're on the lower side, but there are other cities like San Jose is in the 60s. I mean, they are really, you've heard about that. They are.
No, we see it every day on
Yeah,
Newhall
exactly.
and Washington.
And you can
50s
see
or 40s,
like
but yeah.
Winchester, which is the center line is the dividing line. You can see the east side is bad, west is still looks blacker, and so on and so forth. So, but regardless, we are, considered the category is still good. But as you can see from 86, we are declining. And we had shared with you, in order to start getting back up there, we need about 12 million a year or so. And that'll help us catch up in the next 10 years or so, bring it back to the mid-80s or something like that. However, as you can see, we are not adding anything, so it continues to decline now. County approved the ballot measure. We are getting about 2.3 million or 2.1 million from that. Also, the state has the SB1 that was passed. I think it's Senator Bell's bill. So we'll be getting about 2.5 million from that. So all those are good things, but still we are way below. That's where I talk about, doing sort of a citywide infrastructure fee of some sort that will generate even additional revenue.
Yeah, and then, with the projections out, I know we all knew the future we'd be in Vegas or, at the sports track. But I do think you're right about the revenue growth, and you mentioned City Place and stuff like that. That just reaffirms that for me. All your future considerations, I think, are sober and right on. The only one that I have issues with, and you mentioned the charter, the limited term employees. We pride ourselves in giving people opportunities to have careers here, and I don't want the Walmartization to infect our city as well. So that concerns me. And I wouldn't want to go down that road. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know what others think, but the other ones I think are very forward-thinking. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill?
Thank you. And Angie, I want to thank you for the great report, and particularly like looking at the forecast and where we're going, because I know no one can predict where we're going in. There is, you can't like build in a recession, but we are very far along into an expansion, and depending on which economic forecast you look at about like where, particularly for this area, are we starting to see some softening. And I know that the economists that VTA hired, because VTA is in, this year, there's a, we've had to take quite a bit of money out of reserves because of several reasons, but one of them being a much more drop in sales tax revenue than they had projected. And so the economist that they brought in, he's still pretty bullish on the economy, and particularly around here. I mean, and his main, the last indicator that he always looks at is, like our job creation, are people continuing to get hired? And he said, when you start seeing that tipping, he says that's when he starts to worry. And I guess he has quite the track record. So we do get those warn notice letters in our packets, and we're starting, there's some, we've heard some prominent ones this week. So I think that that's one of the things that we're really going to need to watch, because I tend to agree with him that can be a really strong indicator for this area, with the way that how our economy is built on those kind of high tech, mostly high tech, but some financial services or other kind of technology boom. So we've got to be very prudent, and that's why I think that we're well served to have the kind of reserves we have, because I'm sure there are a number of people and some of the staff in the audience when say 5 or 6 or more years ago, when those reserves were going down. I mean, I was like biting my fingernails watching from the audience side as we drove those reserves down so far. And I'm sure there were a number of staff people who weren't sleeping very well with that at that point. I think we all want a lot of things, and we get, people and I'm going to bring out some things I'm going to say that that are important to me, but I do think, and I do appreciate that when you're talking about looking at revenue measures, because that's one of the things that I've talked about when we get those comments about what is happening in other cities. And I think that one of the things that we need to lay out for our residents is, we have been trying to move our fees to a point where we're capturing more cost, and looking at things like, I'm still concerned about some of the traffic fee, impact fees and other developer fees, because I know we've relied a lot on negotiating that. But, and I'm not saying I want to do this, but for the community to be aware, the taxes that they don't pay in Santa Clara that they would pay if they lived in a surrounding city, such as the most prominent being the utility tax. But looking at those kinds of things and seeing what the cost impact of that and what that means to our budget. And, and we, Vice Mayor Caserta mentioned about wanting employees to have careers, which I am a huge supporter of. But the other part of it, and the biggest part of our problem right now, is the PERS situation. And I know there's a court case making its way up through the appellate courts right now about that. But I do think that we're at the point, I don't believe that, I know there's the employee contribution and then there's the employer contribution, but what's been happening is this third bucket has now been created to fill the deficit with how, the PERS board was over-optimistic. And some of you have heard me give my, hearing, oh, it's a new economic paradigm speech. Well, unfortunately, too many people on the PERS board swallowed that Kool-Aid. And so now we're all going to be paying for it. So I think that unless we're going to be facing an incredible decrease in services in the coming years, we're going to have to really have very serious conversations. There's just no way around it. So and it's not just going to be that employees will lose their jobs, which is horrific. It's also going to be that services to residents will be cut. Tremendous. So, I want us to all be aware of that. And so one of the things when we talk about how, when I talk about looking for new revenue sources, one of the reasons why I'm always saying, what kind of tools can we get? Every time we look at like a contract on an IT system, it's all like end of life and it's being held together with spit and some old Band-Aids. And Gaurav, has to work wonders, and whether it's the city clerk system, whether it's the police department's 911 and record system, or whatever, that seems to be a common theme, which says to me that we have not been adequately investing for a number of years. And so one of the things that I always like to see is if you provide the right tools, that your employees can be much more efficient and effective, and they have a better work experience rather than whether they're fighting with inadequate tools or whatever. So, I think that's the way, part of how we have to look at things going forward. And that's why, I had made the proposal that we have some sort of auditor general function. I believe we did add some money into the stadium authority budget to continue being able to have performance audits, what we're going through now with Harvey Rose. But I do think that it's worthwhile that we do look at some kind of process to use an auditor general, as many cities, many of the larger cities, and VTA and I believe BARD and those kinds of groups, to help us look at areas where we may have weaknesses and where we maybe can have a lot of improvement. So I didn't see that in the budget. I know we had talked about it. So at some point we may have to look at looking at one of those discretionary pots. But so I'll just hit on a few things that in past years I've gone through in a lot more detail, but I just want to hit on some things that I think are important to the residents. And in the budget for code enforcement, because I think, we're showing, now we're showing 4 people. I don't know if that reflects, because we, a year or two ago, had approved money to have, how many was it? 6 or 6 code enforcement folks that were contract employees. So I think that must have fallen off the budget table. And because, so many of the, when you look at some of the metrics that are embedded, and appreciated seeing them there, the metrics for each of the departments, it gets into, that's one of the main things I hear from people. Why is there garbage in the streets? Why does somebody's house look the way it does? Yada, yada, yada. Why are all those shopping carts out there? Why are there weeds growing out of the roof of my neighbor's house? Those kinds of things. So I see that we're now back up to 4 FTE. So does that reflect those are full-time employees, because we have not been using that contract company that we hired a couple years ago?
Yes, we are.
We still are using them?
You have
On
another
our
item
agenda.
on the agenda also
It's under consent.
for
okay.
for the amendment to that contract.
Okay.
Councilmember O'Neill, that's one of the contracts I'm going to ask be continued. So
Okay.
there's
All right, 'cause
further
I thought I
discussion.
thought I
We
did hit
haven't
'em
we
all,
haven't
but I
gotten
must
to
have
it
missed
yet. So
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're showing, so we are adding a little bit more full-time in the code enforcement?
That's correct.
Okay, because like I said, I think that's one that's important to the residents. And then also, and maybe I missed it, maybe it's on the consent calendar, and I thought I read them all, but for the plan review and permit services, I see we have a little bit of FTE increasing there. Are we going to continue to use, we had outsourced for a couple of years quite substantially, and I've even had, just this past week, somebody in the community asked me about that. Somebody who must be more wonky than, so are we going to continue to use outsourced
Well,
services for the plan check?
It'll still be a combination of things, but in the past several years, we've used outside consultants or contractors, and that becomes an issue too. If you have contractual services for X number of years, then that can raise some red flags that those should become benefited employees. So that's what we are trying to do with the conversion now. Some of the full-time positions that you see in the building, those are actually consultants, may become full-time employees, or they'll have to apply for those positions. So that's what we're looking at with this budget.
Okay, so then keeping on in that vein, the tree program, because it seems like not a week goes by that we don't hear from residents on one side or the other about trees.
That's also on the consent.
That's also on-
But that's SVP.
Asked to be.
Is John still here?
No.
Yeah, John,
SVP's tree
that's
trimming
SVP,
is
and then there's a
separate
city
from the
side.
ci-
That's
there's
correct.
Two tree programs.
Two
So
tree programs.
That, I did read that one.
I was going to say, read your consent
No,
calendar.
no. I'm not talking about, those are the trees in the back of people's houses with the power lines. This is, we're talking about the city trees.
Correct.
And we had some episodes this past week. So I see that we're dropping an FTE, because here we keep saying, hey, we're the tree city, we're, the Arbor Day city. And so one of the things that I'm going to ask the council is I'd like to work on having a real tree ordinance and a program, because that seems to, we have like 2 lines in the city code that combines trees and bushes. And, we do not have a tree ordinance or, anything. So but we have cut back an FTE in the,
But we have contracts that do that service, so.
but I'm just curious, and so what was the cut in the FTE? Is it you were contracting out?
Because we're contracting out.
Contracting out further,
Mhm.
okay, so there we
Right.
talk about our career people. So let me see, I had a few others that I had turned down. So this is, and maybe Chief Kelly might, because I noticed because that was my theme this year. I was looking at FTE counts and where reflected in the budgets, and I realized that. So for 15-16, we showed about 180, and so for this year, we have 166.5. And I
Talking
thought.
the fire department?
Fire department. And when I looked through the sub-budgets, it looked like it was all, so it would look like it was, protection. So I thought we were in the process of, we'd been really trying to ramp up with those who are EMS and, fire responders. So I was surprised.
Mayor, do you want an answer right now? I can bring Chief Kelly also?
Yes, I think
Okay,
it's, if
so-
we do it, otherwise we'll.
All right,
we'll
so
be
let me
lost.
give you a general response, Councilmember O'Neill. If you recall, a couple years ago, we kind of redid this whole vacancy and FTE. We had a lot of positions which were sitting vacant, so we just kind of did away with those, frozen and, other kinds of categories. So last year, we added, I think, 68 positions. So part of that you see, it was 184 versus 168. That was that cleaning up process, okay? So, but it was still done based on the staffing study that fire department did.
Right.
So now that study did have a qualifier that, okay, they should have so many positions, which I think we are there already, and PD is getting there this year. But in addition, fire department study had suggested that chief should continue to look at additional positions. So there was a door open there for additional positions. So what I want to point out is we are aware of that there could be some more positions added in fire. However, there are currently vacancies. So we want to fill those first rather than adding more positions and just looking at the FTEs and positions are vacant. Let's fill every position that we have, then reevaluate, and if we have to come back to you mid-year to add more positions, we will do that. So let me ask Chief Kelly if he wants to add something to that.
Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, and thanks. City Manager did say it appropriately. We had several frozen positions during the last recession. We froze hiring, and we had 24 vacant positions. We just froze them. And then council provided some more, 6 positions at one time, that's correct. And then we added more with the study. So right now, we have enough firefighters based on the study, but the consultant cut it pretty close. So we can add positions right now, but we've decided the best course of action after consulting the city manager is to look at the leave policies and the leave that's taken throughout this next year, see if we can get through the budget. We think we can, but as we track expenditures monthly, we'll see if we had to add some more money in the budget this next year to keep the staffing as recommended by the staffing consultant.
Okay, so right now, so there was like a number that was authorized, because I remember, I thought it was more than 2 years ago that we cleaned out the ones, because I think a lot of the departments had ones that had been frozen. It was like those CIP projects that had been in there for 20 years, and we were never going to do them. It's just remove them, because it's confusing to people. So after we did that, so we added some more positions. So we came up kind of with the authorized level. So you're saying that based on the budget, you're recommending that we run slightly below that authorized level?
Yeah, so we've increased our overtime budget to pay for overtime to fill some voids, but if it's beyond that, we'll have to make a mid-year adjustment. We'll be monitoring that closely.
So how many positions are you, because when I see last year it was like 180, now we're looking at 166.
Well, last year it was, we added 5 positions to get to the 166, and we're adding one more this year to get to 167 and a half. So
You're talking 15, 16, no, with 179 and a half positions.
That's correct. And of those, many of them were on the books, but they weren't funded. So these are 167 funded positions. And it could be that we add some more. It's great to add more employees. It makes things so simple, but we're really watching the budget closely, trying to get through this. And so we looked at increasing our overtime budget and then looking at a mid-year adjustment.
So like the 2,500 people who have signed up to take the firefighter test, it's for that one position?
No, we have about 10 vacancies in the firefighter rank right now. Our academy in September should be about 10.
Yeah, there are a lot of vacancies too, so that's what I was trying to say. Let's fill those vacancies and then see where we are, and then assess the vacation and the scheduling and everything, and then come back to you in mid-year and validate that.
I have a question, since you're here, Chief. When does it make sense to be paying overtime versus hiring new employees? And I'm going to ask the same of the police chief as well. Because I know we pay a lot of overtime, so.
Well, when it gets to a point where you're calling back overtime every single day, then you can add an employee for that. But it gets to a point where if you're calling back 2/3 of the time, it wouldn't make sense to hire a full-time employee. So it's kind of a balance. It is a balance on how we figure that out.
Are you close to that? You are?
Yeah, we're close to that.
Okay, because that's my thought is, I know we do pay a lot of overtime, and then that, just escalates, so.
And one of the things we have with our employees is negotiated with our firefighters is a lower entry-level position and pay for our newer firefighters, which makes them less expensive than hiring back a time-and-a-half senior employee. So that's all part of the discussion we've had as we look to staff our department.
Okay, and we'd like to be part of that too, so, because that's something I think that we're facing in all public safety. Sorry, Teresa.
No, so this is my last item. It's not really about, but it's the city manager and maybe the chief, or it might involve you a little bit. So when I looked at part of the PD budget, and we have the program for Homeland Security Special Events, and so I'm assuming, it even mentions Levi Stadium. So we have a lot of controversy going on right now. And I know a couple years ago I had suggested, and the former finance director told me he was working on it, that instead of taking, because I actually think it is cleaned up somewhat, because I used to see, I'd shown Gary or whatever, a lot of items that looked like they were stadium costs that were in the budget. So we were talking about first reflecting all costs that are stadium related in the stadium authority budget. And so when so I'm not sure, like when you hear when the Homeland Security Special Events Program, to know how much of that is really stadium related, and should we be reflecting that in the stadium authority budget? It was just kind of like what Gary told me he was working on a couple years ago.
Maybe I don't know the specifics, Councilmember O'Neill, but generally speaking, I can assure you any stadium cost is billed and, received back in the general fund. And maybe, Angie, can you answer?
Yeah, so we will show what we spend for the NFL events, because that is a general fund cost, not a stadium authority cost, but we also show the revenue to offset it. So in the revenue, there's a reimbursement for public safety NFL events. So we want to budget because we want to make sure they're tracking so we can see where it's falling, because these are general fund costs. On the non-NFL event, that's in the stadium authority budget because the stadium authority pays for that.
Okay, so the special event cost is divided then in the budgets?
So they would show, when I brought forward the stadium authority budget, that budget included the non-NFL public safety cost, yes.
Okay,
And then
right.
this would include the NFL.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember O'Neill. Councilmember Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for one of my favorite departments, the library department. And so let me see.
But
Looking at-
I'll answer that.
Oh, okay. Thank you, City Manager. Okay. Let's see, looking at the budget overview, okay, there is the item about the new bookmobile service, and I just wanted to clarify, the bookmobile, is that the bookmobile that Irvine Company donated?
That's supposed to be here in around October or so.
Okay, so the budget that's being proposed for the bookmobile, I would imagine, is just the operating cost
That's
for it?
correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. The other thing, regarding Mission Library,
I'm sorry, Councilman, can I just add something to that answer? So we didn't add any position to operate the bookmobile. Right now, we're going to look at current staff and how that, because it'll be building up the program.
Right.
So right away, bringing a full-time person may not make sense. So city librarian is looking at her operations, and within her budget, she will manage to operate and build up this service, and then going forward into the next year, we will, come back to you and whether there's a real need or can it continue like that.
Okay. Do we have an idea when the bookmobile will go into effect, or?
Well, October, it's supposed to be delivered, and then we'll start building up the program.
Great, okay, thank you. The other question regarding Mission Library, just to clarify, we put money aside already for the renovation of the Mission Library.
That's correct. The Mission Library budget is in the previous year's budget. So this year, in fact, we'll be bidding the project soon.
Okay.
With using those previous budgets. So we don't need any additional money for that unless the bids come in high, then we'll come to you with recommendations where the money can come from.
Okay. I just was confused because under the general government funds, I know it's not city money. You were explaining, Angie, that it's federal money, but I wasn't sure if that 2.9 million, is that already part of the money that's already been allocated for the
That's correct.
Okay.
That money has been appropriated for that purpose, sitting aside.
Beautiful. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
Can I just follow up on the Mission Library, because that was on my list as well? When we had our joint meeting with the Board of Library Trustees, and we talked about the renovation of the Mission Library, one of the items that really stuck out for me was the fact that we're going to do this, somewhat major remodel on the Mission Library because it needs it, but left out, or as one of the add-on improvements that wasn't in the main budget for library, but was a preferred add-on, was to redo the windows of the library. And for me, the most important components of the structure is the roof, the foundation, and the windows. So I thought it didn't make sense to me that we weren't going to do the windows. So I wanted to propose to the council as one of the errata memo items that we bring back, or whether it's tonight or next on the 27th, that we add in the windows to the library, because if we're going to do this kind of work now, it makes sense to do that now and to get the energy efficient windows that'll probably pay for themselves in the long run, but it's something that if it needs to be done now. So I'm hoping, City Manager, that we can either add that to the memo for next Tuesday or 2 weeks from now as part of the budget, or if there's some room within the renovation monies that have been set aside from last year, if we can put that in now, because to me that's a basic. It's not that's not a an add-on amenity. It's something that needs to be done.
So Mayor, point
Yes.
noted clearly, but I would like to share a couple of comments. Number
Okay.
one, when the architect was reviewing the remodeling and the scope, and we talked to staff and we looked at the history, the windows meet the Title 24 requirements. They meet the code requirements, but you're absolutely right. New windows, double pane, from noise perspective, and energy efficient, all those could be added. But that was like about $150,000, and I know you heard, or we all heard from the library board when we met with them, this was not an ad alternate. They just want to see that added.
Oh, it wasn't even
It
an
was
ad
not in
alternate?
the ad alternate schedule. I just wanted to clarify that. But also, since then, I worked with Public Works, and we've adjusted some costs, and we've freed up some costs. For example, there was staff charges built into this budget. Now, both parts are general fund. Staff is funded in the operating budget by the general fund, so why are we charging to the project? If it was a redevelopment or some other source funding, then we do
Right.
charge. This way, so we pulled that cost, so that freed up this money to add few ad alternates. So let me suggest to you, point well noted, we will look at that, and like I said, when the bids come in, so at that time, we'll have a much better idea. Maybe it's competitive bid and the budget is enough, and we can add those. If not, we'll come back to you to add that.
You don't think it's appropriate for us to do it in this budget?
You could. I mean, you can set aside money, and we may
I
not
would like
need
to
it.
do that, so we know that
But
we
it's
have that. If we-
150,000.
If we, whatever, can you bring back on the 27th, whatever you think it might be, based upon your reducing the amount for staff costs?
All right.
I don't want to throw out a number because I don't know. And that we could look at doing that for the library.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Councilmember Watanabe.
I'm sorry. City Manager, was an RFP done previously or an estimate of how much the cost was going to be to renovate the library?
So the RFP was for consultant services, the architect, to design the project. Then we have an estimate, and the budget is set aside, but we haven't gone out to bid yet. The contract, bid
right,
that we
yes,
do
exactly.
after the
Yeah.
design is complete.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
I just wanted to say that these changes, whatever you want to add, we can make the change on the floor and actually put it into the final here without having to come back, since you guys are discussing it.
If you know the cost, then yes. There's
can
a
get that
couple
from them.
items that I'm going to bring up. I'm not sure you're going to know the cost, so.
Okay, yeah, if you know the cost and we can increase the budget tonight, we can do
Okay.
that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Are you finished, Councilmember Washington? Okay, thank you. Councilmember Davis.
Angie, couple questions. Let's see, on the special revenue funds, did you get that little email from Alan?
It came over as a text, but.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so that, my curiosity was like, there was fluctuation in that. And Alan was basically trying to explain this to me, but is there some way that we can change that? Or find out if we could cut back this year to maybe fund something else, or see if whatever is in the fleet, that we don't really have to buy anything this year, or is there a way of adjusting that? Because I didn't get it, I don't have that in front of me, so I
Sure,
was
so
kind of.
so you're talking about the internal service funds, the equipment.
That's correct.
Revolving fund.
That's the one.
So there was a spike, I think you had mentioned, but that was when we had actually bought a fire apparatus. I believe it was a pumper truck.
Was
so
a
that
fire truck.
Yes.
Correct.
And so if you look at the 2 years before that and then this year, it's pretty much in line. That we can always decrease that if we needed to, but I will tell you, during the recession, we got really behind. So some of the vehicles are very old, and we are trying to get back caught up, yeah.
Okay.
And, not only that, it saves maintenance cost and energy efficient vehicles, fuel efficient vehicles. So it's, when we did look it up, I think there's about $3.7 million budgeted in that. $2 million is general fund. Police, fire, parks, that's all their vehicles. So it's also a safety issue because you want them to be safe. But that's obviously a place that we can look and talk, work with the fleet management and see if there's a way to, could we slow it down a little bit again? But again, like I said, we got really behind during the recession.
I got more for you.
Okay.
Under the overview, you kind of said that our economic growth was at the slower pace. And in previous budgets, there was a list of impacts of expanding businesses. And so I kind of have one from last year's, and it put new and expanding businesses. How come we didn't do that this year in this budget? Like what was coming down our way for either TOT or, sales tax or whatever. Because I think when I read, you said the sales tax could be a little volatile. We don't have a lot of retail here, so was there anything in the economic development plan? Because here it was like Erickson, Whole Foods, Target, City Plays, Palo Alto Networks, and UC Santa Cruz Extension. So these were impacts that were going to expand the businesses. How come we didn't have it in this budget?
Was it in the transmittal letter, or was
Last
it,
year, it wasn't in this one.
was it in the transmittal letter? I can't recall.
No, this was in the book from last year's adopted.
I'm not sure. I don't have that in front of me. It could be because I am newer to doing this and maybe
I'm a
hadn't.
little bit older than her. So, but
Older, I think today's your birthday, right?
It's your birthday.
It's his
Yeah, it is his
birthday.
birthday today.
So I think that was just giving you an idea of businesses which are projected to come here. So some of them have materialized, some haven't. So City Place is a good example that was listed there. So it was just acknowledging that other businesses could be coming in, which could help us with the revenue.
I was just
And
wondering
that's
how-
the same situation at this point, so.
Okay, we did the vehicle one, and, under city clerk. We had, yesterday, last year, we approved a calendar person, a full-time employee, and the calendaring is done in our office, in the manager's office, council office. So I was wondering how that was reflected in here. Because we maybe you can answer that question.
Excuse me, the person that was approved wasn't actually approved for the calendar. The person that was to manage the individual department calendars. In fact, during that discussion, if you'll recall, we had mentioned that there would likely be a necessary increase in staffing at the mayor and council level to cover what would be the management of a significant number of calendars. The increase in staffing at that time was due to the fact that the clerk's office has consistently 3 half-time as-needed folks, 2 office record specialists, and then a Parks and Rec leader, which is Lindsay Maybach, our Special Olympian. During the course of a decade or so, the clerk's office had taken on more than 35 additional duties, and we're having to and at the same time had an increasing number of council meetings, and at the same time had an increase in the use of technology. To meet those staffing needs, we had rotating through the office at any point between 3 and 5 as-needed folks in addition to that we were in the constant process of recruiting for.
So the question is, you don't have a designated calendar person that was approved in the last budget?
We have a staff person who is responsible for making sure that the overall calendar process for the city is managed, so they make sure that everybody's posting their calendars, that they're posting what's supposed to be there. We audit it every month. We manage the technology to make sure that the technology is patent and it hasn't broken or something like that. But we don't have that increase in the staff level was to cover the overall need, not only for
One
the
specific
calendar.
thing.
That was just the thing that kind of pushed it over the edge, where we said that's critical enough that we have to get right enough that we can't do it with as-needed people, that we have to hire twice a year and train, because we didn't have anybody else to push the work to. So that was one of those items.
So then Angie, back to the stadium manager, was that adjusted in here? Because we were looking for a stadium manager, and, because we were going to have separate stadium authority meetings, we were going to have someone to be looking at everything.
The
And it
stadium
would be-
manager is still in the budget.
So that is in the budget?
Yes.
Okay, that was one of my questions. And you did answer the library question, I'm so happy. And then city manager, marketing. We have, we're doing a lot more, and I don't know if I think the mayor was going to bring this up, but where in the budget do we have that kind of implementation for Jennifer? I know we have 2 employees working with her, and then we have other things that we have going on. We hire, PR people, yada, yada, yada. So where is that in the budget? Because I didn't understand where that was, so.
Well, the communications group is fully staffed now. You had proposed, or you had approved 2 new positions which have been filled. And so it's not a new need, so that's not in this budget for additional.
Not in this budget?
No, because this is for new things. That was in the previous year's budget, and we filled those positions. So that group is fully staffed.
So we have a communications budget?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Angie.
Are you finished?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. To add on to that, one of the things I'm going to propose is one of our council goals. One of the top goals that we had was to engage our community engagement. And I know we have some staff people in the communications department of the city. But I would like, city manager, if you could come back, and this is one of those items, Angie, that I don't really have a cost on, but I want to propose that we put some money in the budget for really community engagement and a communications plan, because I've been thinking about this for a long time, and some of the things that I'd like for us to do, which is really going to go hand in hand with educating our community, communicating with our community, engaging them, informing them as to what we're doing. I would really like our council to have monthly newsletters to the community as to what we're doing with sort of online weekly updates. I would like to have regular town hall meetings in our city with our city council, and that would be like in neighborhoods or online or by telephone. I really think that we really have to reach out to the community in terms of polling for the types of things and surveys that we would like to see in our community in the different departments, whether it be library, parks and recreation, public works, educating our community on the needs. I think that if our residents really knew what was going on through a communication plan, they could help us solve a lot of our problems and work with us, to engage with what we're doing. And I know we may have the people in the departments, but we actually don't have the plan. And so I would like, city manager, if you could come back on the 27th as part of this RADA, to come back for the budget to give us an idea, and I can give you a little more specifics on terms of some kind of a newsletter, or I know there's all sorts of regulations, so we have to be careful in terms of names or things like that can't be in it. But what is the council doing on a regular basis, and get it in different types of distribution, because not everyone's on the computer. What is the council doing? What is the city working on? What are we working on 2 months from now? Where would we like the input? How can you engage with us? So really an outreach plan, an outreach and communications plan. So does that make sense?
It definitely does. But you're not asking for that plan to come back on the 27th.
No.
Yeah,
Just put some money in the budget.
So let me assure you, just consider it done, because that's where the city manager's funding comes into play. I can foresee how big this effort can be, and we can absorb that in that funding.
I'm not sure you can, but we can talk about that.
Okay.
I don't know how much money do you have? I'd like to know. What's in that special account of yours?
It's not millions, but
no, I mean, this is going to go, and I don't expect what we really want to really seriously engage the community, we are not able to do with our existing staff and our existing resources. We are going to have to put some resources towards this to show that we're really serious about doing this.
Right.
And so that's what I'm talking about. So I don't know what your limitations or what you have in the account.
I'm agreeing with you, but at the same time, we need to have a scope defined, and then you put a number on it. So it'll be difficult to come back on the 27th without knowing exactly how big this effort is.
I can write a memo and give it to you. And
that's fine.
I've actually put some numbers for things, so.
I was just going to make a suggestion. If we, obviously, we wouldn't run out of money by mid-year. That would give me time to see how much this is going to cost, and I could come back to mid-year, because anything we put in there, we're just kind of guessing. We don't really know what work effort it may take more staff time, we may get a consultant, whatever we do. But by December, January, I would know what these costs are going to be. We could come back and bring a consent item or an item back for acceptance.
I don't want to wait till December,
No,
January.
No, you could go ahead and start. I would just see what those costs were. You wouldn't go over budget, because you have budgets, and for just any kind of your services and supplies, you have those costs in there. It's just a thought. If you want to get exact numbers, it would give me time to see how much this is costing.
I'm just thinking on a general basis. I know that Let me go to Councilmember Watanabe before.
Just have a question, Mayor. Is this something that you foresee, like the council having more of a role in, or so that it would take away from the staff? I mean, it's not going to have an impact on the staff?
No,
Or-
it will have an impact, and that's why I don't want to throw this type of engagement, because it's going to be, it's labor intensive. And so whether we do it through our staff with additional funds, or whether we hire some outside consultants to help us do it properly, I'm not assuming that they'll be able to handle it because they have so much on their plate already. I
agree.
And I want to do it the right way, but it will entail a lot of city council involvement.
So I agree with you, Mayor. Give us the memo and
Okay.
the parameters,
I'll
and
work
then
on
we'll
that.
we'll come back to you on the 20th.
And it was one of our goals. We talked about it, so just want to get it going. Councilmember Watanabe, anything else? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, public, Rod, do you have any cards? I don't, no cards? All right, budget, please come forward if you'd like to speak. I don't have any cards, so.
I just want to say I'm glad this discussion is going in, and I think at the MTC Policy Advisory Council, we call that magic money. If you can ever find that magic money from any news source, please do. There's never enough. And for tying that back into goals, thank you, Mayor. I think getting back to the goals of the last few years is important. I noticed one of the items in here I was just going to bring attention to is I think it was in Angie's budget was the $2.8 million for CAT, and that's for the police, I believe, for the computer aided. So it's very important that that comes in, especially when we have a stadium and such big events like this. I guess the other thing I just want to throw out there is obviously we have a new city manager, so whether we have Rajiv for 3 months or 6 months or however long it is, that person, she or he, may have slightly different goals. So I'm not sure how this factors in and if there's any sort of money. So whatever monies that you decide now, I'm sure that person will have certain interpretations of how they want to be, whether they're reacting to what your goals are or they have certain proactive visions. And I'll talk later during public session about the city manager recruitment. But I think we had some good ideas about that. But
At least the first year, they'll listen to the council.
first two, maybe. But yeah, so I mean, there's some unknown, I guess, right? Because you don't know who you're going to get. I mean, or what city or state or wherever they're coming from. So hopefully they'll come in with some unique perspectives and probably repeat most of what we have. But I don't really have anything here. I just want to commend Angie for coming in. Obviously, she's come into something very new with a huge steep learning curve, and I think her and the rest of the staff have done a nice job with it, so thank you.
Agreed, thank you. Please come forward.
One of the things I wrote down as you were talking about this, I call it public engagement. One of the things I'd like to see done, and Jennifer used to do it, and that's capture the questions that the public asks and then actually provide answers. So whether you do it with your new person or hopefully get a city manager that goes back to doing that, I don't think it's unreasonable. The public should get answers to their questions, and we haven't been getting that for forever. And also timelines would really be nice too, of still trying to figure out when we're going to get the signal light. Another thing that's not on this presentation is the unfunded medical care liability that our pensioners are getting, and that hasn't shown up yet, and that's another multi-million-dollar liability that's unfunded that hasn't shown up yet either. So our city is upside down, and one of the things that has not been addressed and has not been showing up is where is the whole thing about our permit fees, and we've asked for a reconciliation to show what do surrounding cities charge and what are we charging, and that still hasn't come in and it hasn't been shown to anybody, and I don't know where that information is, and that should have been part of that, but this budget cycle. Are we also looking at engaging our employees at cost sharing some of these liabilities, or having to cut back on raises, or having to cut back on lifetime pensioners not getting lifetime medical care? That's what some cities are having to do because of the cost of all this. So we continue to give raises and we continue to hire more and more people. That makes all these unfunded liabilities keep going up and up. I think telling the city they're going to have less services is not necessarily the answer. I think we need to start looking at capturing the promises that was made when we built the stadium. And I think we've had people not doing their jobs properly, and maybe we need to get rid of the dead wood that we have, perhaps that have stayed too long.
Debbie, thank you.
So we need to look at that too. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Anyone else? Okay. Any council members? This is a public hearing. There's no one else. Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion second. Lights on the motion? And that passes unanimously. City Attorney, do we have to take each item individually of the 4 items, or can we approve it as one
As long as you,
with changes or conditions?
as long as
that
you
we
have the same vote on each item, it should be fine.
Okay, council, if you want to take it one by one, I would just ask that we include the mission library and the marketing, the communications plan to come back on the 27th as an errata memo to the budget, and so approve subject to those, or anything else anyone would like to add on to that errata memo. Councilmember O'Neill.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve the city's 2017-2018 annual operating budget, that we approve the capital improvement program budget, including the attachments, and approve the Housing Authority 2017 to 18 budget, and approve the Sports and Open Space Authority budget.
Second.
Could that include the errata memo, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, and to include the errata memo.
Sorry, let me make sure I've got this right. It is the staff recommendation to include returning in the errata memo the mission library windows and the public communication plan with any necessary
Public
funding.
communication funding plan, not the actual plan. Yeah, we can't move that quickly. Well, we probably could,
Okay.
but
Any
we wouldn't
funding-
sleep. Okay.
So any funding necessary?
Yes.
Any anticipated funding necessary
For
for the
communication.
potential communication plan?
Correct.
Good, thank you.
So there's a motion second. Any discussion? Lights on the motion? Passes unanimously. Congratulations, staff, everyone.
very much.
you.
Angie.
Thanks for your indulgence.
Thank you, city manager, city attorney, finance director, everyone. Thank you on that.
Okay, all staff can breathe now.
Oh, don't go anywhere. We have a long meeting. No. Okay, next, we have the consent calendar. All items are approved with one motion. I was going to ask, before I look at this card here, that we just pull item B10, 13B10, which is the adoption of the resolution approving the sale and transfer of the Santa Clara Hilton property located at 4949 Great America Parkway, and authorizing the city manager to execute a purchase and sale agreement. And the reason I'm asking that it be pulled is I don't think it should have been on the consent calendar. It's a large sale. That should be out. So to ask our city manager just to explain what that sale is all about. And then I'm asking if the council can continue items 13B, 7, 8, and 9. I think those contracts, there's going to be more questions on those contracts, so if we can continue those until the 27th, hopefully to get some questions answered before the 27th. So,
got 9 in
pulling
there?
C, 13B10 for discussion, and continuing 7, 8, and 13B, 7, 8, and 9.
Continue, okay.
Uh,
And Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Davis.
Okay, then I wanted to pull 13B, oh my gosh, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 for discussion.
So 11 through 15, B 11 through 15 pull.
Yep.
And then let me, I have a card here, hold on. So right now we're pulling, sorry, there's a lot here.
Yep.
So right now we're pulling B10, 13B10 is pulled. 13B 11 through 15 is pulled. I have a card here to pull B B9, because the others have been pulled.
It was continued.
Oh, 9 is continued, sorry. 7, 8, 9. 7, okay, B 7, 8, 9 and continue. Okay, so pull 13B6, 13A9, and 13B3.
Sorry.
Oh, I get it now.
It's only 20 after 9.
Yes, is there anything left?
Yeah, I got a couple. 13A, 8, and 10. So I think we got a hat trick there. We got 8,
Okay.
9, and 10.
Could we approve the balance? Is there anything, whatever's
anything
left
left?
of the
The rest,
consent calendar?
whatever's left.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Mayor, before you vote,
Yes.
can I ask?
No, did you want to pull something?
I wanted to add back. 13, 7, 8, 9 that you're continuing. I just
Yeah.
wanted to get an idea, is there a specific reason or,
Yeah,
so we can come prepared next time?
Well, I'll try to ask the questions ahead of time. Those are, just to go through the contracts and be really clear, because they are, I think they need more explanation, and especially the code enforcement contract and the tree contract are things that I have a lot of questions on, and I believe Councilmember O'Neill did as well.
Okay.
Okay? So nothing glaring, just lots of questions that we didn't want to bring up tonight.
Just to share with you, these expire at the end of the year, so that's why I wanted to make sure that on the 27th.
The end of the fiscal year?
Yeah, so on the 27th, we give you
We
good reasons
understand.
to continue so that we have a contract going forward.
And you know we don't like contracts at the last minute. You know
Understood.
that, right?
This is not our first rodeo.
But,
Yeah.
just for the members of the public, the process starts in February, March. It's a lengthy process, and
I understand, but I know when contracts terminate and they're expiring, you know that way ahead of time. So,
True, yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, is there a motion for the balance of the consent calendar? There's a motion and a second?
Did somebody second that?
Second.
Motion second. Lights on the motion for the balance of the consent calendar, and that passes unanimously. I'm sorry, Councilmember Mahan had to leave, so she wasn't feeling well, so do we need to officially, we don't need to do anything, City Clerk, right?
Excuse her?
I don't believe that you need to.
We don't take any action.
From the payroll point of view.
No.
No, I just think you need to note in the record.
Just note in the record, and
At what
she
point in the agenda she
apologized,
left.
she had to leave. So,
I think you need to make a motion to continue the 3 items.
oh, okay. Next, move to continue B 7, 8, 9. Is there a motion? Motion, second. Lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. It's going to be fun, okay.
Gotta go to A now. A, no,
One
you don't.
second.
Not yet.
We're going to go to public presentations now. Any cards, City Clerk? 2 cards. I can't read this very well, but the last name's Osterbach. Tunis? Osterbach is the last name, Osterback. Anyone here by that last name? Okay, on Blackford Court in San Jose? No? Okay. Next, we have Alex Pandrengi. I hope I got that right, or close. Anyway, sorry about that. Close enough. Welcome.
Thank you. Oh, give me a second. Hi, my name is Alex Pandrangi, and thank you for your time this evening. I want to talk to you about a way for the city to generate additional revenue at no additional cost. It's frustrating to me when city facilities are underutilized or sit empty during various times of the day or various times of the year. Our platform can streamline the facility rental process for gyms, fields, courts, really any type of space. It doesn't have to be recreational or athletic. and increased participation in existing programs, for example, leagues, clinics, camps, drop-in play, anything really. So we do this by allowing the city to specifically market its open spaces at open times to an existing user base of hundreds of local coaches and thousands of local players who are actively searching for those specific types of venues. Now, on the administrative side, our platform is free for the city to use. It's completely web-based, so there's no IT or additional infrastructure changes that need to be implemented. It can work alongside any pre-existing facility management software. We also provide insurance to protect any participating venues against personal injury or any types of liability. Really what we're trying to do is help the city generate additional revenue, not only to address ongoing operating and maintenance costs for its current facilities, but also to reinvest in new recreational programs that can benefit the community over the long term. So I'm really excited about the potential opportunity to partner with both the city and the community, and I hope that I can continue this discussion with the appropriate members of leadership going forward. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, you must have heard we needed some revenues. Is that what you heard just recently?
I heard a little bit of that in the budget discussion.
Okay.
So
maybe by consensus, since we can't take action, if we can refer this to the city manager. It's an interesting concept if you can contact, or should he give us, information right here to our city clerk? Rod, if you can get us information.
I have it right
Okay.
there for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a great
Thank you.
evening.
All right, is there anyone else? Public presentation, please come forward.
Scott Lane doing an advertisement, PSA here. I was one of 4 people that attended the city manager community input. So hopefully we'll have a lot more next door and some other comments. We do have the next 2 meetings are June 19th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Central Park Library, Redwood Room. Then after that, the 3rd meeting is Monday, June 26th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. at the Northside Library. And that's wonderful that we have 3 meetings at various parts of the city. I think maybe some of the questions that were brought up that the city manager suggested here, I hope that gets brought up as well versus 1-year budgeting, 2-year budgeting. I think those are very pertinent questions. How would they address this? How would they address new revenues? What are they going to do with unfunded pension liabilities? So we were there from 4 to 5:15. It was cut a little short, but whether you have 10 people or 20 people or 5, I mean, the fact that we're having the engaged discussion to find out what people feel that they need and want, I'm hoping it gets wrapped up. The question that we asked was obviously what's the timeline going forward, and it obviously depends on if the people are, they're a city manager somewhere else and they need to give 3 months notice, et cetera. So there's a lot of unknowns. But what I requested to Liz was the fact that if there's any way that we can still engage in the process in July from a public perspective. I don't know what that would take, but some sort of dialogue, and we did talk about maybe some sort of timeline at least, so the public would know where the city is in the process as well. Almost like you have a thermometer for a fundraising type thing. It'd almost be that way, like where are you in the process as you go along. Someone else may have some other comments on that. But the other thing to mention is there is also a survey form that's on there, so if people don't want to make any of the meetings, I highly suggest that they start putting them in now because they might think of questions later, and that you can also email any comments to the Director of HR, Liz Brown, at santaclara.ca.gov. So I'm hoping we have a lot more. I wish this was ahead of time. The reason why I wanted it ahead of time was we could actually change the job description, and there was some confusion with the question I had with them. The reason why they went with the skills and qualifications that aren't on there. On the website, it says look for characteristics and qualities. But sometimes the question is, what's the skills and qualifications? Not the way HR wrote it, but did we miss any? Are there any skills and qualifications that maybe could work in addition to that HR doesn't have? And I think we actually picked up a few that HR didn't really think of. So it shows the power of public engagement, because this is not knocking HR. I truly don't mean that. It's just there's so much that's on the plate of someone like a city manager that sometimes it's hard to you could agree with this, it's hard to track all of that. And so if there's something else that I'm sure they probably say, yeah, that's good, or maybe it's just positioned a little bit differently or said a little differently. But I think I'd heartily recommend anyone watching this or get on Nextdoor or whatever and try to get more people to engage in the process. I think the more communication, the better, and we'll have a more vibrant process. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next session is next Monday, the 19th at 6 p.m. at the Central Library.
Correct, Redwood Room, and then the week after that is June 26th, a little bit later, 7 to 8:30 p.m., Northside Library Committee Room. So I'm glad that HR put this at different times, so hopefully people at different schedules can attend at different days.
Thank you for your public service announcement. Yes, please come forward.
Yes, I'm Hagag here. I also have a public service announcement.
Okay.
It was 3 weeks ago I kicked off. It was really good to hear as part of the budget request that, and in line with the spirit of the council goals of more community engagement and outreach. And then, one of the ideas that were brought up was doing more town halls for the community. And 3 weeks ago, I kicked off the very first episode of a town hall series where I hosted Mayor Gilmore as part of the town hall. And just to let you know, since those 3 weeks, that town hall video reached 5,000 people. It had 3.7, it right now has 3.7 thousand views on it, just in 3 weeks, 124 comments. So this is like comments and real-time questions. And so the public service announcement is that the second town hall is this Saturday at 10:30 a.m. At Mayuri Indian Cuisine. So it will be in person in addition to being online. And I'll be hosting Mayor Gilmore and Councilmember Watanabe at the town hall. So
Hope she gets most of the questions.
I'll make sure that you guys get it
Okay, good.
evenly.
Well,
But
she's the mayor of the North Side, so yeah.
so that is the public service announcement, and until the city does their official town halls, I encourage everybody who lives in the city to participate and either attend in person or attend online, and you can ask your questions in real time, and I'll also ask them on your behalf. So that's again this Saturday at 10:30 to 11:30 at Mayuri at 2230 El Camino. So hope to see you there.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, next we have the consent items pulled for
13A8.
discussion. I hope someone,
Let's B3.
wait, I wrote them down, now I can't find it. Okay.
Okay.
I hope someone else wrote them down. Let's
8,
go
9, and
down the
10.
line. Did someone else write them down? Okay, so let's start with A9, approval of an additional appropriation for the special liability reserve to the Special Liability Insurance Fund Insurance Claims Expense Account in the amount of $3 million and authorize the transfer to AM Trust North America without further council action.
Mayor, that's A9. You want to take A8 first?
Yeah, I lost my list, so I thought somebody
A-
said A9.
8, 9, and 10 on A.
It was A8, A9, A10.
Okay, let's start at 8 then. A8, adoption of a resolution accepting the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control grant to be utilized to fund a variety of overtime assignments to curb alcohol-related challenges in the community in the amount of $79,120 and approval of the appropriation. Ms. Brest, did you pull that one?
Yep,
Yes.
that one was
Okay.
mine. I was just going to ask that we could take some of that money and use it to watch the people coming out of Levi's Stadium and start enforcing the drunks that are coming out of Levi's. I have a good friend that lives on the north side, and they are having a phenomenal problem around the overpass where they walk over and then they slide down the dirt. And then I guess, they have a place for the Ubers to pick up, but not the lifts to pick up. So evidently, the lifts are picking up down there, and the people are pretty darn drunk by the time they get down there. So then they have a lot of cars that are picking up people down there that are just driving too. So we need to start really doing some alcohol enforcement for the drunks that are coming out of the stadium. And we need to start cutting off alcohol at the stadium too. So I'm really hoping that money, or that we start enforcing the alcohol that's coming out of there. So I don't know if that money is targeted that direction, but I'm hoping, Chief, that we can use that money and start taking care of the people that are going to kill somebody out there. Thank you.
Okay, City Manager, can you answer that?
I'll defer to the chief, Mayor, if you don't mind. Chief?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening. Thank you. I almost guarantee that this particular grant did not include the stadium operations, since that is costs that we charge the stadium for event days. This particular grant was more for around the university and our local bars and at stores that sell alcohol to educate them and also combat underage drinking. This is the 4th year that we received this grant. And if you recall, in February, our unit received an award from ABC on the innovative and good response that they got for the grant use, or the money that they received from the ABC, so they were very appreciative and gave us another grant this particular time.
Okay, wait, we might have a question. Vice Mayor Caserta?
Oh, adopt the resolution is my motion.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Move approval?
Second.
Motion second. Lights on the motion? And that passes unanimously. Okay, now we have A9. I read that already, so I don't know who pulled that one. Hassam, did you pull that one?
I pulled 11
No,
of them.
A9. Yes,
Yeah.
you pulled A9.
I pulled
Yes.
11 items. When you, just a general comment on the 11 items that I pulled, which 3 of which you have continued to next meeting. When you look at the consent calendar, you have, if you look at some of the big ticket items, even if you put aside the $24.25 million sale, you're looking at $14.5 million of contracts and expenditures, which does not belong on a consent calendar. We were just talking about budget appropriations and how we're running out of money in the next few years because of the increased liabilities, and here we are putting $14.5 million on a consent calendar with this stroke of one pen. So I don't think that is appropriate. On the issue of A9, when you look at it's one of the bigger items at $3 million, and when I read the report, I have no idea what it's for, and the only thing that my guess is on for this one, where it talks about the transferring $3 million to an insurance thing, and the only topic we talked about with insurance in the last, month or two was increasing the insurance liabilities that we have at the stadium because of the bike trail conversations. So again, that's just a wild guess, and the report doesn't say anything what it's for. So $3 million is a whole lot of cash for us to just be approving without getting any details on what it's being used for. I'm going to come back and talk about the other items as well, because there are other big ticket items, but on all of these, it's really a question of what is this money for, and once we get more details, we'll have an idea of whether it's appropriate or not to be putting it on consent calendar and approving it. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think to your first comment, I think that was a lot of our thoughts when we saw, well, at least when I saw the consent calendar, because it's supposed to be for routine items. A lot of these are not routine items. So I've already talked to the city manager about that. Certain things, these are not routine. So I think that, that's why we pulled a lot of the items so that we could discuss them. So thank you for pulling a lot of them as well. We'll continue to do that if they don't look routine. City Attorney, did you have something to say about this one?
Yeah, unfortunately, the memo did not include a lot of information because it concerns litigation. And I can't really talk about the litigation in an open session, but it's not a premium to pay any kind of insurance. It's a transfer of a retention to an insurance company to help participate with ongoing litigation that the city is involved with. And I'd prefer not to say anything more about it in an open session in terms of, because it would affect perhaps people's perception of liability and things like that. So, but it does pertain to existing litigation.
Which would be reported out in the public if it were to move
Any ultimate resolution of the
Yes.
litigation will eventually
come
become
to the public.
But at this point, while we're in the middle of litigation, it would be preferable not to disclose how much of that $3 million will be expended, but it is in defense of an existing litigation.
Thank you. So is there a motion to approve?
Transfer, yes. Second.
Motion second. Lights on the motion. And that passes unanimously. All right, now we can go on to 13A10.
Somebody pull 10.
13A10.
Yeah, somebody
I
pull that
found
up.
my list, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. Oh, adoption of a resolution establishing the city's fiscal year 2017-18 appropriations limit of $429,451,171. Question.
Another thing that I don't know who made the consent calendar this time, but it's awful. Another thing that should not be on the consent calendar. So I would like just publicly for someone to explain why it's on the consent calendar and to provide some details of $429 million item being on a routine consent calendar, please.
This one is kind of a routine item, but city manager?
So Mayor, this used to be as part of the budget until last year, and there's never a discussion on that. This is part of the budget. This is the money appropriated for expenditures. So it's nothing new, nothing separate. It's part of the overall budget. So because it's a routine item, like you said, and that's why it's on consent, if there's a desire, next year we can put it back. There's never a discussion on this item in the historical years, so.
So is there a
it's
breakdown
council.
of these money somewhere?
I'm sorry?
Is there a
No,
breakdown?
no,
that shows
Ms. Bress,
this money?
please, you asked a question, he answered, so we're not discussing back and forth.
Well,
Teresa?
I think, so this is what's commonly referred to as the GAN limit, and I believe
It's
that
just-
every
you just put
public
the limit.
entity in California has it. And so there's a formula, and it was a part of the same GAN that was in Jarvis GAN, whatever. So it was a way to make sure that local or government entities weren't spending too much money, so it's a formula. So basically, it's just saying, here's what the GAN limit is by computation, and then our budget is in compliance with that limit. So
Okay.
like every school district, every
They have to just
district
put
had
the
to show
number.
that they are under that GAN limit, which was a way to try to control expenditures by government.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to approve?
We all learned something today. Thank you, Teresa.
Yeah. Okay.
Second.
Motion second, lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. All right, 13A10. Okay, so is the next one 13B3, I think?
Yes.
13B3, Hassam. This is like bingo, okay. 13B3 is approval of the extension of the maintenance and support agreement with Motorola Solutions for the period of July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018 to provide continued software support for the Communications Premier Computer-Aided Dispatch and Premier Mobile Data Computer Systems in an amount not to exceed $231,910 for fiscal year 2017-18. And you have a question?
Yes, it is, and I know Scott had brought this up earlier as well as part of the overall budget. And if I recall correctly, some time ago in the recent past, there was an approval for the updated CAD. So my question is this related, or is this an additional cost on top of what was already approved in the past? And if it is, then why so? That's just a simple question.
Okay.
Thank you.
City manager
I'll ask,
or police chief?
Police chief, but generally speaking, this is, again, software support. This is not the replacement of the CAD system. This is a one-year support of the software.
That is correct. We're currently in an RFP process to identify a vendor for a new CAD and RMS system. Motorola is currently our CAD vendor, and we currently pay close to $214,093 a year for their services. We were hoping that we would have had a vendor selected and already negotiated and started the process, so we wouldn't have to continue with the service plan. But however, it's a little bit slower moving, and we would like to have a one-year extension for Motorola CAD, and for this one-year extension, it is $213,910. And we will prorate it if we're able to pick a vendor sooner, if Motorola isn't the vendor.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion second, lights on the motion, passes unanimously. B3. Okay, 13B6. That is approval of the call agreement with ELB US Inc. and call number 17-1 for professional services in an amount not to exceed $397,433 for an upgrade of the audio-visual systems in the council chambers. Wow, okay.
I'm getting my steps in today, coming up and back.
Hassan.
Hassam here. Yes, thank you.
No, we did upgrade in 1960.
Thank you.
1960.
And
the last time
actually,
we did
this
that?
was one of the ones that I pulled that I was actually pulled to commend on how, exciting this is. The question I have is, well, I have a couple questions. How does this tie into the upgrade of our meeting management system that was approved sometime in the recent past, like a month ago or so? I probably know the answer to that, but I would like to hear it just to double check. Also, it's really cool to read in the report that there's also going to be added video, audio capability, hopefully for live streaming, but it would be added in the city manager's conference room. So that's pretty awesome. And then the question is, are we going to start getting, or can we please start getting live streams of committee meetings that are held in those conference rooms as well? And if so, that would definitely be well worth the $400,000 price tag on this, because we can start live streaming all the meetings, and then I don't have to be in 10 places at once. So, so the two questions: is it how does this tie into, or does it tie into the upgrade of the meeting management system? And then, are we going to start live streaming all of the committee meetings and commission meetings? Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
I'll ask Garg, IT Director, to
Great, thank you.
shed some light on this. As far as live streaming, maybe I can answer that first while Gaurav is coming up. Yeah, that'll be a good idea, but again, it's a staffing issue as well. So, and cost. So the capabilities there, we'll look into that. Our goal is to live stream ultimately everything, but
Okay.
when it'll be done.
Communication thing.
All right, Gaurav, tell us the good news.
Thank you, and thank you. This is an exciting project with 4 phases. The first part is that the broadcast equipment that is a standard definition, we're going to upgrade it to high definition. And that itself is failing, and we've had some closed shaves here, closed saves. So we want to make it HD, just with the caveat that Comcast and AT&T will not broadcast it in HD, but we will get live broadcast through streaming. We'll get a better quality video. AT&T and Comcast, they're not obligated to put it out in HD. But with that, the plan is, if I can share a little bit more of the physical, we're going to bring the control room to the very back of this room. Right now, there's control room in the Berman building, and the coordination between this desk, that desk, on the phone, all the coordination, being in visual sight, that's going to improve a lot of things. I think to the piece that was asked about how does this tie to the meeting minutes agenda management system, that itself is a transformation with the city clerk and the city manager's office. We've already started the project. The end goal, which is in multiple phases, will include a flat panel display so the voting can be digital and not with LEDs like the 60s over here, or the timer with a countdown clock on a big TV.
Box change?
Yes, it will. You'll have a computer instead and those kinds of things. So those pieces will happen. A lot of modernization, just the overall setup, much more streamlined, along with the workflow and all of that the city clerk's office is already working on the agenda management system. Video conferencing is a next item, not coming right now. In the council recess, we wanted to get this in going, and we couldn't find contractors who had the capacity. Other chambers, other folks who wanted to do this in the summer vacation time were already booking out a whole lot of people. So we did our RFP, we found a vendor who's willing to do that. Those other phases we're putting down with the agenda management system towards the end of the year when it goes live. Right now, the first priority is getting the council chambers up and running.
Well, maybe we'll have to meet at other locations, like satellite locations, if there's work being done here in the council chambers.
That's correct, and we've already identified and notified.
Teresa wants to meet in Monterey, is that okay?
City manager.
Hawaii, Maui.
Is it 8? What?
So it's, okay, good clarification. Only someone who was into that technology would know to ask that question. This is 720p, not the 1080p. And that's the state of what we found with the agenda management systems that were capable of streaming. We will be able to, though, for our Facebook and YouTube, be able to do 1080p. Yeah. The equipment is 4K actually.
So with high definition, will we all need makeup artists now? Right?
Get rid of the bags.
Okay. I guess.
Second.
The position
Wants
for
to
that.
move on. Any
Position for
discussions
that
on
in the-
this?
in the budget.
Yes.
Just real quick question. How does this operate? Hopefully it'll modulate this noise. How does it relate to the record retention policy? That's something else to look at, right? If you're doing video, the video starts getting more and more and more, right? So you're going to start videotaping all of this. There are storage issues. So I just want to bring that up. I do hope we can keep these things available and have long-term record retention and not lose things for many years. So we can certainly do that, whether it's an Amazon Web Services, but there may be some unintended consequences and costs that you might want to factor into this. But I think it's well worth the investment for this. I just want to throw that out, that I hope we are not getting rid of stuff, say 6 months or 2 years down the road. We keep this as institutional memory, and it will be searchable at some point too.
Yes, thank you. Thanks. Did you have a final question, Hassan?
This is something to look forward to in the future, not necessarily that's something that can be done with this proposal, but one of the things that can be hopefully looked at in the future is as more of these meetings get streamed live, and it's part of the outreach and giving access to people who can't be here in the room, is what opportunities do we have for people who are not in the room to provide or to be able to ask the questions? So
Questions
yeah,
and
so when you
things,
have
some
people who are in the
interaction.
room, so when you have
Yeah.
people in the room who can line up for
Right.
public comment or questions, well, there's a whole group of people at home who are either watching on TV or on their devices that would like to ask a question but then can't get to
Yeah,
that. So
we'll look into that,
right,
and
and then that's something that you should look into.
You can send that to the governance committee.
As more of these live streaming and high quality things become available, more people are going to start asking for that. So it's
Agreed.
something we should
Agreed.
look
Thank
towards.
you. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Yes.
Are we also looking at finally tying into the people who get that they get cable into their homes via satellite? Because right now they do not get the equivalent of Channel 15. So are we now plugging into them, or can they plug into these meetings too?
I don't know.
Has anybody
I
ever
can't
finally
answer.
solved that problem? Because if they get, is it Dish or?
Shaking his head no.
I don't know what the other thing is, but we need to solve that problem too, because there's other providers of cable TV service that they should be able to get the same level of services in our city. So can somebody make sure they're solving that problem too for the rest of Santa Clarence?
Okay.
Please, thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk.
Yeah, Mary Gilmore, this is not addressing Ms. Bress's question. However, for the council's edification, I'll share that a number of years ago, the retention schedule for the DVDs and CDs related to, the DVDs, the video record related to the city council meetings was changed to permanent. So we keep a permanent record of that and have for some time now. Additionally, we archive these on the city's website and don't remove the video in perpetuity as long as they have been being recorded in a manner that we've been archiving permanently. And finally, with regards to the ability to stream meetings, community meetings and things like that, the current SIRE system is so temperamental that we had expressed concerns that the more people who touch it, the more likely it is to break and fail in a manner that would perhaps take the entire system down. The Granicus system that the council approved does not have the same level of risk. So at that point, it would become simply a training matter of training the staff liaisons and the folks who are staffing the meetings to know how to interface with the Granicus system if they were to choose to do so. However, I will say that does take some fairly robust training to be enabled to do that in a manner that will be patent for the public interface.
Okay, thank you for that information. Okay, got a motion and a second on the floor. Lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. Okay, B10. And that is the adoption of the resolution approving the sale and transfer of the Santa Clara Hilton parcel property located at 4949 Great America Parkway, and authorizing the city manager executive officer to execute a purchase and sale agreement with Ontario Airport Hotel Corporation for a purchase price of $24,250,000, and approving minor amendments to the agreement as necessary in coordination with the city attorney and all documents necessary to accomplish the transfer. City Manager, I pulled that just for an explanation to the public of what that means.
I'll ask Assistant City Manager Ruth Chikara to explain.
Thank you. Good evening, Ruth.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. One of the outcomes of redevelopment dissolution is that the city, or the former redevelopment agency, needs to sell all of its assets in order to, one, retire the debt that the agency might have had, and then two, any extra proceeds then would be distributed amongst the taxing entities. So in accordance with the dissolution law, the successor agency has been in the process of selling its assets. The first one was sold in December, and we sold one of the Gateway 2 parcel, and that was at $112 million, which was very unfortunate to the city, but nonetheless, we are complying with the law. The next one is this Hilton parcel, and so we commenced marketing of the parcel in March. We have a broker who's done extensive outreach to potential capital sources, and then we got 8 initial bids in, and then we narrowed it down to, it was narrowed down to 2, and the highest bidder was Ontario Airport Hotel Corporation at the $24 million number, 24 and a quarter. So, again, in accordance with the dissolution law, we are asking for authority to go ahead and sell the property. The city of Santa Clara, as a taxing agency, would get 10% of the sales proceeds. With the Gateway 2 parcel that we sold in December, we retired all the debt. So anything that we sell from now on is going to be distributed amongst the taxing agencies. Another local beneficiary of our sale would be the school district. The school district receives about 40% of all the sales proceeds, so that they'll get a nice healthy check after the sale closes. One of the terms of this particular agreement is that this buyer is, because they're also a current tenant on the site, they're saying that they don't really need a due diligence period. So once they execute the agreement, that they're willing to close within a matter of 7 days. I did hear from the broker this morning that they're really interested in trying to close by the end of the month. So it's going to be a very quick transaction once the successor agency approves, and hopefully the oversight board will approve this Friday.
Thank you. Still heartbreaking to me that we work so hard for all these properties, and when redevelopment dissolved, we have to sell everything and we get 10%.
Yeah. Oh, 10%.
Still heartbreaking to me. It's good to know that 40% will stay in the school district, at least in the city, but it's still, this is a bitter pill to swallow. 10% to the city.
Yeah, and also to
Mission College, do they get 10% Mission College, or is it like 8%?
Yeah, it's less.
It's like 7, 8, something like that. So, well, we'll have, a little over half of it stay within the community, but it's still bitter. I'm very bitter. All right. Staff, Rod, your light's on? Did you have a question? All right. Any comments, questions, anything?
Motion to approve.
Motion?
Second.
Motion second. Lights on the motion, and that passes with one. Teresa, you mean to abstain?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't looking.
That's a yes. It was unanimous. Okay, thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Davis and Assam. You pulled 11 through 15, both of you. So is this a general question on all the convention center and the maintenance districts and everything else, or would you like to, I know we have to vote on them individually. But Councilmember Davis, why don't you go first?
Okay, so my thing was, they're
Can
on
you
the
speak in
consent
the
calendar.
microphone?
Sorry.
Thank
They're on the consent calendar, so that kind of bothered me. But at the same time, I really wanted to not go into this 5-year world, the 3 years and the 2 years and the whatever. I really wanted to stick with a 3-year and then see how things worked out, and then with each one of these contracts. There were some issues, and I just think that going into the next 5 years and we're having financial issues, I kind of want to keep these contracts at a lower level. So that was in term, right? Less terms, and that's why I took all of them together, because they were all in the same maintenance district. So Hassam?
Mayor,
Let's
Or-
have the city manager.
Okay.
Or no, let's have Hassam, and then the city manager can answer any questions.
I also had the similar concern, but probably a little different than Debbie, because the contracts all, if I'm not mistaken, all of them say that there are 3-year contracts with 2 one-year extension options. So what I would like to propose, and it's for the same reason, right, that we are going to be tight in a couple of years with our overall budget, was that the 3-year with 2 one-year extensions, we could after 3 years decide not to extend, but I think that 3 years should be even less. So that was my concern, that the 3 years and 2 one-year extensions, maybe we make it year by year. Or we do 2-year and 3 one-year extensions. So it's still kind of the same overall cost, the same overall period, but at least it gives us an opportunity to pull out sooner if we need to. And then the other thing is, as I've said in the past, and I like to be consistent, when we have these contracts, we need to have a way in the contract for the city to pull out and terminate the contract not for any reason, but for let's say poor performance from the vendor or whoever is providing the service. We need to have an out for us to be able to terminate the contract if there's poor performance. But also we should have in the contract somewhere a clause that if the city is in a financial tight spot, that we should be able to pull out of the contract as well. So we're writing these contracts. Let's make them as favorable as we can to the city, so that we aren't caught in a few years in a tight situation where we're paying millions of dollars for these services, and we can probably negotiate then a better term. So I'd like to see the 3-1-1 go either year by year or 2-1-1-1. And then also for there to be clauses in the contracts that allow for termination for poor service, and also termination for financial distress that the city may be in. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I add one more thing, city manager, to the questioning? I know that that complex is one of the complexes that we're going to have to be selling through redevelopment. And so could we enter into these long-term contracts knowing that the sites will be sold eventually?
Yeah, so thank you.
some
Maybe I
kind of
can start
30-day
with that. This
termination or
is,
something.
number one,
Yes.
this is for the common area. This is not for the properties themselves. So what you'll be selling is the hotel or whatever, but not the common area.
But the common area comes with each parcel.
Correct.
So,
Well, no, it's a separate parcel. So 3 partners participate in the budget currently. So that's another answer to the question. Number one, yeah, city funding is involved. That's why we are going through the proper processes. Otherwise, there are 3 partners and we participate in the funding. So we went through RFP process, and it's the partner's decision to continue with these vendors. And they're, like you mentioned, they're 3-year contracts with 2 extensions. Every contract has a termination clause built into it. And also, these are all subject to annual budget appropriations. So all those safety clauses are in favor of the city. Those are built into it. Your staff looks into all those things, and that's why we applied the judgment. These are very normal contracts, and that's why we put them on the consent calendar. And city is definitely protected. So with termination clauses, 2 one-year extensions, which we don't have to exercise, annual budget appropriation. So we are protected in that.
So Rajiv, if those other 2 parcels are sold, the Hyatt and the Tech Mart,
Right.
does the city continue to manage the common area?
We work with the new property owners, and the common area still remains common area. They'll have to continue to participate.
But who
If the district,
manages the common area?
it's the maintenance district.
My understanding.
This is the maintenance district.
My recollection, and it could be wrong, but my recollection is the city owns and will continue to own the common area and the convention center, and that it's only the holes in the middle that will be sold.
Oh, Okay, I wasn't sure about that.
So, I mean, I'd have to look at it, and I have recently heard from, there's a bunch of CCNRs on the property.
Right, I understand that.
That regulate
Make it very
who's
convoluted.
who's
Yes.
responsible for
Right.
doing what on other people's property. And I think maintenance is one of the responsibilities that we'll retain as long as we retain the common area parcel and the convention
center, because
parcel.
we hire the management company who then does all these contracts
Right.
and administers all these contracts.
It's partially in response to our obligations under the CCNRs.
Okay, I don't have any problems with the
I don't
contracts.
have it in front of me, but that's my
Yeah.
recollection of how it works.
I don't have any problems with the contracts. I was just worried about the timeline in the event we no longer own
Yeah.
the parcels. How does that, I guess we would just assign our,
Those are things we're going to have to deal with if and when we come
If
to
and
the
when.
sale.
Right. And the only thing I can think of, Mayor, is if the other two potential buyers, they don't want to participate in the district, then the funding will come on us.
then they won't have any parking either. right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
All those things will have to be looked at when that situation arises.
You're evil. Okay.
Or electricity.
Or anything,
Or
yes.
water.
Yes.
Anyways, yes.
Ka-tink, tink. The other reason I was going to pull it too, because I would think we would need to go on a shorter term, because we're looking at possibly have someone else manage it, because we have someone else looking at the whole facilities. So
there's termination clause according
There's
to.
a 30-day termination clause. And also, Mayor, I want to
Experts here.
point out, I mean, we look for the best of the use of the funding that we're giving, slightly
as long
longer
as we can get out
term.
of it, because we have so many things that are pending. We're going to have a new city manager. We're going to possibly have a
Agreed.
new
Thank
management
you.
there. I just want to make sure we have enough outs. Okay, thank you.
And slightly longer term gives you a better deal.
Okay.
So,
Is there a motion on, let's take them one at a time. What did we start
Okay,
with?
motion to approve.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, please.
This may or may not be related. Is there any way that, or a council direction of where you'd like this 10% to go? Can it go into trying to put it toward hotels or something else that could give us or increase TOT?
It's a different item.
I realize that, but I mean, two issues. I guess, yes, that is a different item. But I guess with this one, I guess once again, I'm going to follow what Debbie said. With a new city manager, I guess you got the termination clauses. You feel comfortable
Yeah,
with
we
that?
do.
Okay.
We're protected. We're comfortable for the most part, okay? Okay, so this is 11, approval of the agreement performance of services with Universal Site Service to perform sweeping services at the convention center. Is there a motion?
To approve.
Motion second on that item.
Okay, now we're down to 12.
We're down, okay, that's 5 with a couple absent, okay. That's 12. We have approval of the agreement for the performance of services with Ace Parking Management to perform event parking management at the Convention Center complex. Motion and a second. Lights on the motion, and that passes with 5. Next, item 13, approval of the agreement for the performance of services with Universal Site Service to perform janitorial and Universal Site Service, janitorial and pressure washing services at the Santa Clara Convention Center complex.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion second. And that passes with 5. Approval of the agreement for the performance of services with Brightview Landscape Services to perform landscaping services at the Santa Clara Convention Center complex.
Motion to approve.
Motion second,
Last one.
and that's approved with 5. Next is approval of the agreement for the performance of services with Universal Protection Service, LPDBA, Allied Universal Security Services to perform security services at the Santa Clara Convention Center complex.
Approve. Second.
Motion second, and that passes unanimously with 5. Okay, moving on. Okay, unfinished business. I don't see any unfinished business. Anyone? All right, reports for action, seeing none. Stadium Authority items, seeing none. Bids and proposals. A, award of public works contract for the citywide sanitary sewer repair Phase 1 project to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, 24/7 Router and Plumbing Services, Inc., in the amount of $368,788, and authorization to execute change orders up to approximately 10% of the original contract amount for a total not to exceed amount of $405,677. Is there, City Manager, any report or any questions of the council on this? Yes, Councilmember Watanabe.
Thank you. Yeah, just reading the memo and seeing that the bid summary, the engineer's estimate was $246,000, and then the bids came in like 120,000 over. Why was there such a discrepancy?
Sure. I mean, I think that deserves an explanation.
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's a
Thank
good
you.
question. First of all, in the way of background, Council may recall that there was a group called River Watch, and they are going to different cities and they're looking at such facilities like sanitary sewers in the vicinity of creeks and rivers. And so under that agreement, which was about 5 years ago, I think, city had agreed to fix any sanitary sewers with bad joints or failing sewer system to repair those. So this is the first project after inspecting the existing lines. City came up with this project. Now these are multiple pipes, locations and multiple pipes that we are fixing. So that's the biggest reason for this difference in cost. Number one, city is not really experienced in this kind of work. So we looked at our regular, let's say, sewer projects, where we are normally within 5 to 10%, and that's how we estimated it. But because of several mobilization efforts and demobilizations and different traffic controls at different locations, that's why the prices came in high. And as you can see, the bidders' prices were close enough, and engineer's estimate was low. So that's the basic reason.
Well, thank you for that explanation. Any other questions from the council, from the public?
Motion to approve.
Motion second. Lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. Award of the Public Works contract for the Tasman Drive Bicycle Lane Improvements Project to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder, Graham Contractors, Inc., in the amount of $512,254.50, and authorization to execute change orders up to 20% of the original contract price for a total not to exceed amount of $614,704.50. Can I ask why that's a 20% change orders?
That's a good question, Mayor. We put 20%. Number one, it's again a traffic control oriented project, and secondly, we have the grant funding, so we didn't want to give away the grant funding, so we are saving it for now for contingencies in case the cost comes in higher. We don't expect to use that, but we didn't want to just return it.
And we did get an email, I think, from Betsy Magus in support of that project, if I remember correctly.
Thank you. And going back to the previous project, and you can see the engineer's estimate, this is the kind of project we do. So we're in the middle of the pack.
This one's 23% below. Yeah.
We are in the middle of the pack as far as the estimate is concerned. So.
Okay. All right, very good. No questions of the council, any questions of the public? All right, I think there was a motion by Vice Mayor. Second. Lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. Sorry. Boards and commissions for action. We have the Parks and Recreation Commission minutes of April 18th, and they request to note and file the minutes, but also they have a recommendation that the council adopt a resolution for the 2017 to temporarily restrict and control animals during city-sponsored special events, and develop and adopt an ordinance to restrict and control animals within the designated event perimeter at all city-sponsored special events held in city parks for the duration of each city event, except for service animals in compliance with the ADA and Title 2 and 3. So we don't.
You approved that as part of your consent calendar already. So there was an item on
Yeah,
consent
I was
calendar.
gonna say, okay.
Yeah, so it's been done.
So we approve the recommendation and note and file the minutes. Is there a
Right.
motion for that?
So moved. Second.
Any member of the public want to speak on that? Okay, lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. So reports of members and special committees. Is there any members? Please speak.
Speak?
Okay.
Okay. I would like to thank Mr. Teixeira, if you're still here, he's probably gone, long drive home. We have our accreditation for the World Health Organization for our age-friendly cities. Woohoo! And we're going to be doing a presentation, hopefully in front of council, and congratulating our Senior Advisory Commission on getting this to fruition for the last 2 years. I congratulate them all. Job well done.
And we are planning to do that on the 27th.
27th, we are planning to do this on 27th. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, city manager.
No, Mayor, just wanted to thank you and the council for approving the budget, and it was an excellent process. Your comments and guidance was very good, and hopefully we can deliver a lot of programs and projects. And I also wanted to once again thank planning staff and other volunteers from city staff who helped PPS in their Power of 10 exercise at the university last Saturday. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that as well. It was a tremendous, outpouring of staff helping the community. We had quite a few people there, and it was a really, really interesting and fun event. So thank you, and thank you for what you did for the budget. We really appreciate it. It's tough every year. It gets tougher and tougher, and trying to balance it is really a special feat. So thank you very much. And finally, happy birthday, City Manager. You're
Thank you.
30,
Nice to get older.
29 or 39, I can't tell. It's hard, but if we get the HD TV
Our kids
here,
are a little
who's gonna
older,
know?
so I would say 49.
49, okay. So happy birthday, happy birthday. And we are going into closed session now. So City Attorney, do you believe that we'll be reporting back anything?
I don't believe there'll be a report out of closed session now.
Okay, so is there a motion to adjourn to Tuesday evening, June 27th? A motion, a second? And that passes unanimously. We're adjourned. Thank you.